Ah, that's how you do it.
What's up, brother?
How do you add to stream?
It's easy, right?
Well, once my dumb 34-year-old brain figured out.
Hold on for a second. Let me just put the microphone up a little bit here. I got my cat. Oh, my cat just left the room. Otherwise, I'd introduce you to my cat, man. Hold on. Let me just. I don't like lights, so let me just see if maybe I can turn this way. How you doing, man?
Good. Dude, I've been having tremendous news on this.
Turn up your volume.
Ooh, how do I do that?
Oh, it's me.
Do you know how to do that?
Yeah, I just no. It was my volume.
Oh, okay, you're good. Things are good, man. I just started running this 8-week challenge with a lot of or some of my followers, just trying to teach people some of the eating and training frameworks that I've kind of stumbled across over the last 10 years. And I got some amazing feedback in the last few days from people who are telling me things that you would never hear associated with the diet plan, right? Like this guy, Paul Bouchard, who joined our program 7 weeks ago. You know, I asked him, like, what's your favorite part of the program? He lost 7 pounds in 8 weeks. And he said his favorite part's eating. And I'm like, man, that's insane. Nobody talks about weight loss and eating being their favorite things in like the same sentence. And that's what we're figuring out, and we're hacking and we're sharing. And it's like, it's really cool.
Yeah, that is, man. That is. How many people do you have participating in that?
The first one, we had about 15. We're going to launch the next one January 11th. So, you know, I would expect maybe a little bit more.
Is that what you're doing professionally now?
No, so I'm still working at OKCoin. Am I wearing the shirt? I'm wearing the shirt. OKCoin. Oop, go the other way.
What do you do there?
I'm director of business development. So we're I know you streamed with Pomp a few weeks ago or months ago. We're one of the oldest cryptocurrency exchanges in the world.
Do you like Eric Vogt or Eric Voorhees?
I mean, I'm not. I know he's like a crypto OG. I don't follow him that closely. I just know he's like a hardcore libertarian, and that's about all I know about him.
I did something with Milton. Did you know that?
I do know that because she texted me about it. I texted Milton earlier today. She said she loves you.
Yeah, Milton is awesome. She's so nice.
She's like, so I don't read that many books, which surprises.
Oh, by the way, my wife, Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm Alex.
Nice to meet you.
I told Nancy you're buff. I said the guy is Diesel.
Right.
Nice.
You're buff.
Nice. What body fat are you carrying around?
So everybody, all the fitness guys on Twitter give me shit because they're like, well, you're not 4.7% body fat. I'm like, it's a test. It's what the test says.
You're obviously not 4.7. I mean, and I would say just from that, because I do this all the time, right? I would say, I don't know. I mean, let me see what your stomach looks like. Beautiful. You do. Oh, that's good. So
should I just leave this up on the live stream? I didn't realize I'd be getting called out.
No. I mean, I've done the same thing because I'm, right now for me, I'm fat.
Let's see your stomach, Adam.
No, but I'm just wearing this right now. I don't want to do. But the thing is, for me now, I'm fat because I got ridiculously ripped during like the whole COVID thing.
You told me that.
I got ridiculously ripped, and then I went down to like 155, which for me is a weight I don't like staying at. And because I'm 54, I panicked. I mean, I panicked. What did you think was going to happen? I don't know, because it happened so quickly. I just did the usual stripping out, just stripping out the crap, and then just reducing my meal, the usual type of stuff. And it happened so quickly that my body just took off all the garbage.
Mm-hmm.
I panicked. I went to the doctor for my regular type of stuff, and I stepped on his scale, and I was 154, which for me is too light, right? Because it was too light, and at the same time I was panicking because I'm older than you, so for me, the lean muscle versus fat is different than it's going to be for you, right? For you, you can restore muscle, so you're not going to fuck up your ratio that much, right? The ratio between lean and fat. For me, I can lose weight and lose muscle, so I can lose weight, and it messes up the ratio where I can lose weight, but instead of losing the fat, I'm losing the muscle, right? And the ratio changes. So if I like walking around at around between 12 and 13% body fat is what I usually try and do, I can usually bring it down to 7% like that, right? But I started panicking, man, because it looked like my body fat ratio was fucking up a little bit. So for out of nowhere, I started just eating like a junkie. I got so panicked. I just got so panicked that instead of doing it intelligently and just increasing my caloric intake by, let's say, 300 calories a day, I just panicked, man. And
that's not how you make investing decisions.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, I panicked. I just lost it. I didn't even really lose it that quickly. I guess it took me about 2 months to go from about 168 to 154. So I did it slow, but when I didn't realize, because I never use scales, right? I know what I read, and I can tell, but I had not realized I went down that far. I thought I was walking around 159.
No, how much muscle did you lose?
How much muscle? I don't know. I won't be able to tell you until I strip off this. So right now I'm probably walking around 173, which for me is fat. I'm probably even around 174. I don't know. I'm probably 173 to 174 right now, which for me is fat. So I won't be able to tell you if I did any damage until I get back down to around 163. And then I can tell you, I can tell you, there, because my stomach always gets ripped up. So, but from there, I'll be able to tell you how much skin I'm walking around with on my stomach, like how much fat I'm walking around on my stomach. Dude, we're live?
Did you not know that?
No, I didn't. Holy shit. Oh, bro. I had no idea. Oh,
you told me to test this. I didn't know.
I'll tweet it out then. I had no idea. Oh, dude, that's cruel. I had no idea. Hold on a second now. Let me go to your thing so I had no idea.
Oh, you told me to send you a link to test it. This is the first time I've used it. I don't know how this works. I didn't know we could talk without going live. I just clicked the buttons and then we're live.
Hold on. I can't get over this. Hold on.
I guess that makes more sense. So you asked for the ab show, not realizing that we had a little bit of an audience. But
I had no idea, man. I was just trying to figure out your body fat, and just from that appearance, and it's not that reliable, but it's just as reliable as a caliper test. You're definitely not 5%, which is good, because 5% for you is you're not going to be able to stay there for too long without it really doing some damage to you, unless you're going to be a bodybuilding or something like that.
Right.
But I would say you're definitely, it looked to me like around 6.5%, 7%, which means that if you were to lose 4 or 5 pounds, it would be damaging to you, because you would just be shredded.
Well, and that's how I was last year. I've just been doing a powerlifting plan since March because, well, the reason I got on the powerlifting plan was because my Fancy Pants gym in San Francisco, the Olympic Club, I don't know if you've ever been there, they kicked me out they suspended my membership for a month last August for dropping the deadlifting weights on the platform. And so I decided, fuck those guys. I'm just going to break their deadlifting record.
Oh, wow.
And so I switched from doing, more of a lifestyle training plan to powerlifting. And so I'm probably up about 1% body fat since March. If you look at some pictures of me in March, I was probably 1 to 1.5% less than I am right now.
Yeah. So you're still thinking of yourself at that body fat, because it doesn't look to me like that's where you are right now. But again, I don't know, because I didn't see what you're carrying on your back, right? I didn't see how much fat you're carrying on your back, or the places where you can kind of you can do a visual caliper somewhat.
For sure.
And I don't know how hydrated or dehydrated you are right now, but you look awesome, bro. You're diesel. You're ripped.
Well, so the thing that I tell people,
you're not allowed to look at this guy anymore. She's not allowed to look at you anymore, bro.
So the thing that I tell people though is and the reason why you would say that visually I look like 6 or 7 on calipers, which I would agree for a Caucasian person. I would. A Caucasian person at frankly 7 to 8% on a caliper measurement would probably have similar abs to me. But I carry more fat around my abs than the average person. And this has been shown through DEXA testing, where, the average person who has the amount of pounds of body fat that I has 25% less of those pounds around their midsection. So I have the excuse that people make for, I'll never have abs. I just somehow continue to get results and get abs.
Yeah, but you do. Let me see your abs. I hate to sound like this, but let me see your abs again, man. I know it's messed up, and now we're live. So, Nancy, what do you think body fatty? What do you think body fatty is? You think it's basically the same as me when I get ripped?
Yeah,
but
when you get ripped,
yeah. You could shred all of that. The problem is you could shred all of it if you really wanted to. Even if you just lost 4 pounds, you would do it. But I don't know if you really want to do that, though, man.
I don't, and part of the reason that I was very open to going on this powerlifting plan is, before we knew as much as we know now about COVID, I'm thinking, man, there's this respiratory disease going around. If I get this and I'm at very low body fat, what's that going to mean for my health? It's not healthier to be whatever body fat percent I am, 4, 5, 6. It's not healthier to be at 6% than 10%. So why am I rolling the dice for some vanity project? So I can show people that I have abs. There's no reason for it. So why don't I I like training. Part of the reason that my training plan is sustainable is because I do things that I like to do. And so I like to lift heavy weights. So why would I just not do that for a year? And I know my body's, I'm not going to get fat in a year of training, even if I change my training style. So it's totally fine.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I can't believe that we went live and I had no idea. Okay, so I was just going to walk you through how to do this before we went live. But now go over to your comments, right?
I'm in the comments. I see Rude Betty is she unaware of the gay thing, which is okay. Well, now you know. Okay,
so click on Rude Betty, right?
Yep.
Click on the comment.
I can show it. Ah.
So are you gay?
No.
Oh, I wasn't sure if that's what you were saying.
That's I forgot that we've not talked about my personal life. I'm not. So
I'm like, I would have said to Nancy, it's true. All the good-looking guys like this, really. I'm like, look, it's true. It's not just myth. It's true. The guy is good-looking. I used to go to Studio 54 back when I was a kid. I guess I was 16, 17. They used to let me in. And it was really true then. It was really true.
Oh, yeah.
It was when you say it was the most ridiculous-looking guys there.
I didn't really go there.
But from your own club experience.
Oh, club? Oh, the gay guys?
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna be like, oh my gosh, it's still true. Nothing has changed.
So I have, you don't need to agree or disagree, but I have some un-PC observations that I've made.
Nancy says you look like the actor who plays.
Shane, did you ever watch Walking Dead?
I don't watch pop culture. I got to rely on other people.
Neither do we.
Yeah, you look like one of the main characters from the first season.
Yeah.
Hopefully one of the alive ones. I don't know.
Well, he got
Excellent.
killed off after, but he was really good.
He was excellent. He was excellent.
So, you know, if,
Oh, she's great.
He's friends with Milton.
Milton's so nice. I really like her.
Do you know that Periscope is now like 75,000 views we did?
oh no.
Did you know that? Yeah, yeah.
Didn't
And Twitter's been like giving me hassles with my Periscopes, I think, lately. I think because I don't know, because the one I did earlier that day is now at 121,000 views. So I don't really realize why they like flipped that lever.
Yeah, I don't, you know, do you think that it's a targeting thing? Because I've had that with some of my videos where, you know, it has like 30 likes and 0 views. So, okay, that's not true. But
I don't know. I mean, but so let's look at some of the comments now. I'm really curious. So I see Dr. Tiger Joseph. Oh, that's so funny because he's an awesome guy.
Yep. Tiger filmed my master class.
Yeah,
Right.
he says he's LMAO. So click on his comment.
Show that.
What's up, my brother? What's up?
Handsome face.
It's funny, right? What I said is just not political. I guess it's not unpolitically correct. I don't know where these things go, but I wasn't sure, and it doesn't make a difference to me in either way. But it would have kind of like
aligned with the stereotype.
It would have proven everything is like Nancy. It's true. Look at this guy.
Okay, so tell me this, Adam. I before joining OKCoin, the crypto exchange I'm at, I worked at Google for about 6 years, and 4 of those 6 years I worked in the corporate strategy office. You know, which was basically like marketing was on the first floor, and then the strategy and partnerships people were on the second floor. And so we would see the marketing people on the ground floor a lot. And one thing that you notice with what is that? I can't.
That's the guy you look like.
Okay, I can't see that. I can't see his skin though because of the reflection. I can Google it though and figure out who you're.
His name's John Jon Bernhal, Bernhal.
Oh, okay. Just Google this right now so I can. John Bernhal. Walking Dead. I'll just like Google.
Walking Dead, because you look like him in The Walking Dead.
Ah, there you go. You know, okay, you know who he actually, I think that this guy, John Bernthal, looks like, no, he looks like a combination between me and Brady Anderson, if you know or remember that name.
No.
Orioles All-Star from the 90s.
No. Now were you a baseball player? What's your athletic background?
Yeah, so I went to Vanderbilt on a baseball scholarship, which was really interesting because when I went to Vanderbilt, we were just like an average SEC team. Like we weren't great, but we had a really charismatic coach, really good at sales, and he ended up recruiting the #1 recruiting class, you know, a couple years when I was there, and so we ended up getting like all of these first-round draft picks, and they let me play on the same field as them, and so because of that, all the scouts would come to watch other people, but see me too, because you know, they needed non-superstars to fill the rest of the field because they couldn't get.
They could have had me.
Yeah,
they could have filled their like non-star quota with me if they ever had such a thing, right?
Yeah. So I, you know, despite my coach's best effort to exclude me from the starting lineup every year, he was unable to do that, and so. I ended up getting drafted in a round that no longer exists by the Colorado Rockies in 2008. So I spent a year in Casper, Wyoming, and then a year in Tri-Cities, Washington, before you know, seeing the writing on the wall and seeing what I could do with my economics degree from Vanderbilt. And that's when I got into finance, where I worked for a hedge fund manager based in Hong Kong, who's really into conspiracy theories. He's the person who was teaching me about the Federal Reserve, the relationship between banks, corporations, and the government, the fakeness of news. His son was buying Bitcoin in 2010. Wow. And so that was sort of how I started to get my understanding or perspective of how things worked in the political and economic sphere. And so because of that, in 2011, we just thought that the central banks were going to keep interest rates really low for a long period of time. And in my mind, I thought, well, that means the tech sector is going to do really well because that sector is going to be the sector that's most sensitive to subsidized cost of capital. Let me position myself in Silicon Valley where I'll have the wind at my back when all these companies can access capital cheaply.
If I had a daughter right now, I'd be introducing you guys. I'd be like getting this thing together. That's awesome, man. You're so smart. How old are you? You're
34.
Like, how old are you?
I'm 34.
That's awesome. Good for you, man. Good for you.
Yeah.
Are you married?
I'm not married. No.
Man, I'm going to have a daughter right now. So
yeah, can you make one preferably over 18 pretty quickly?
We'll try. We'll definitely try. That's awesome. So how long have you been involved in Bitcoin for then?
So I ended up, what's interesting is when I came to Silicon Valley in 2011, I was like very convinced the sky was going to fall. I was very convinced that we have, I'm like, we have $2 quadrillion in derivatives outstanding.
And you know my company back then? Did you know TriNet? Did you ever bump into them in Silicon Alley?
No, I didn't.
We're big out there, man. We're big. TriNet, TriNet.
Yeah. I've seen their stuff. I didn't know anybody who worked for them. But so back in 2011, when I was convinced the dollar was going to go to zero and all the things that a lot of the early Bitcoiners believed, I was hoarding bullion. I didn't actually, because I thought that the government was going to make Bitcoin illegal because of all that I'd read about foreign intervention within regimes that wanted to create, monetary alternatives to bypass the dollar. I thought, well, there's no way the U.S. government's going to let this thing get big. Why would I buy any of it? Yes, there's inflation, but the risk of losing your crypto is greater than the risk of inflation to fiat. I hadn't thought of network effects whatsoever. So, I was like in the Coinbase office in 2013, chatting with their VP of business development, telling him, hey, I'm taking this new role at Google, but, we should stay in touch. And so I never dabbled in it until 2017. And, when the markets really started taking off, I reconnected with my buddy Jack, who was a Fed hater back in Hong Kong. And, he was doing equity derivative sales for Barclays back in like 2010, 2011. So we reconnected and he convinced me to quit my job and ultimately ended up connecting me with my present exchange that he used to work for. So, I've been in the space for about 3 years, not quite as long as Melton has. But, I read all the same stuff that they were reading back in 2010, 2011, 2020. I just didn't trigger.
I was actually in Bitcoin early, but then I lost, I lost my pain tolerance for it, right? So, but your kind of an investment thesis certainly, was right. I just never, I don't think the markets have any reason to go down for decades to come. In fact, I think I'm going to be surprised if the Dow Jones doesn't hit 100,000 soon. And you may think that that's absurd, but you guys are talking about Bitcoin at $1 million. So,
right.
Yeah, I think that there's nothing going to stop it now because all that money that the world's printing has to
go somewhere.
Place, and this way they can just kind of live off the annuities of their dividends and.
Oh yeah.
So much you need, you can buy only so much property in Africa and waterways. You still need to convert it into something liquid, and there's a lot of volatility in those markets that you don't have here. So I see Sierra Foothills Gal is here. So thank you so much. It's this was a surprise. I didn't even know we were going to be live right now. I thought we were going to be live for like 5 minutes.
Well, we can keep going, or we can do it next week. I don't know.
Now we'll do something else next week, and we'll do it on my feed. I want to do it on my feed, or we'll do it on my feed, but we'll promote it ahead. And I see Bo is here. I'm not sure how to pronounce it when it's with
Bo. Come on, Bo like French Bo. The X is Bo. Yeah. Bo like Bo. It's Bo.
Yeah. So they say let Alex finish his story. That story is we can continue it the next time because that story's got a long way to go. You can tell. He's still that story. I can tell it's got a lot going. Milton was awesome. We did something with Milton, and it was a lot of fun, right now.
Yeah, Milton was great.
Yeah, Milton is awesome. I'm such a big fan, and I did something with Pomp, but I didn't. I think that's like at 102,000 views now. I didn't do anything antagonistic, but I know that Pomp can, can be very responsive to very critical comments because we discussed it in advance. And I did something with Alexander, and who's been getting kind of a criticism on a political thing, and I'm very supportive of him as well. He took a lot of heat. I mean, you got to be able to be responsive to your critics, right? Otherwise, what fun is life, right? So, and I thought Pomp did great. I wasn't persuaded then. I was persuaded with Milton, but I was also persuaded because the Bitcoin has been in a laboratory, and I think I said that with Pomp, and there's been a lot of momentum behind it now for years, right? And there's also been kind of a lot of misconceptions about it, right? For years. So at a certain point, misconceptions and trends can collide, and you can have this asymmetrical movement where something can climb for years and then fall off a cliff. And it was just so clear that if the government can't even maintain an integrity of an election by doing an interrogation of an election, which is kind of it does give criticism to that same type of condemnation and or lack of kind of any type of pursuit of truth, even whichever way truth, wherever truth arrives at. It does show you that there is some validity to the arguments that we can't manage our own banking. Right? It really
whoa. Yeah, I mean, I tweeted this the other day. Like, imagine when a real crisis comes, because I know that you think, and I'm starting to think that the coronavirus is a real virus, but the responses of people to that, to something that has expected death rate, maybe a small multiple of what a common flu season would have, is causing tremendous social strain. So
this is deliberate. None of this is new. So I'm going to do a Periscope, and I guess we'll do it together maybe, where we're going to talk about books. And people need to have a historical context, right? So as Nancy knows, I mean, even at the gym today, when I was working out, my audio book is The Philosopher Hobbes, right?
Okay.
And the audio book I had just finished, well, actually it was a series of lectures, was my favorite Machiavelli, Discourse on Livy. Before that, I was like, but the point is that you need to have some real historical and philosophical context for what's going on now, because none of this is new. And people will say, well, technology and it travels faster and faster. That's not really true. That's kind of a vanity that people have, that they want to have discovered, like Columbus, some type of new land, because that's really not true. We're clearly going into medieval times. We're kind of this is kind of like a restoration, I guess, a renaissance of medieval times. So it's kind of interesting to observe. But none of this is new. None of it is new. Who's going to educate our children is not something new. What is questions about what is justice? Because we're seeing some real failures of justice. With Hillary, we saw certainly failures. And then, with Trump, we saw failure. And just the whole thing has been completely collapsed. None of that is nothing new either, because that's always been a conversation about, justice serving, the strong and serving the elite. And everybody else is just caught up in that kind of fishnet. So, none of this is new. I mean, it's the fastest roll-up of power in history. And even that in itself is not new, because the period between the Macedonian Empire and the rise of Rome, I guess past the killing of Tarquin, and then going into Cicero, and and into Julius and even Augustus, was a very short period of time. That in itself didn't take 300 years. That was basically 50 years from the end of the empire to the rise of the new one. So none of this is new. It's the fastest roll of power in history. It ends very badly. It's going to end with a lot of bloodshed. So hopefully people are investing, because then they can buy the coolest armor, and they can blast back, because these things never end well.
So what's your take? Like the elites were sitting around and they knew that maybe they knew that their balance sheets were a little bit over
No,
leveraged.
this had nothing to do with finance.
Okay.
This has to do with greed, and this also has to do. I rather than give you kind of my interpretation of some of the classics of philosophy. I would just, and clearly, you read. I'm sure you read a lot yourself. I would just recommend some good books and some good lectures that I've listened to many times, and that I oh look, there's like an ant here, and I don't want to kill it, but I don't want it there, so I'm just moving
It's
the
okay,
ant
Scott.
from my laptop to my floor, where hopefully it doesn't find its colleagues, right? So I would say definitely read some of the classics, because I needed to do so that I already had kind of it in my head, and bouncing around for many years, where I was considering how corporations become countries. There's been something going on in my head for a lot of years, and the roll up of power has not been surprising to me whatsoever. I was expecting it. When you see this much militarization of the police, it's it's not a good thing. And what
Sure.
tyrannies always turn inwards. So I would say begin with something like Thucydides, History of the Peloponnesian War. It's brilliant. It's how history kind of begins in many ways. And then I would say move on to Alexander the Great, and then very quickly move on to the founding of Rome and its first few hundred years, and then move on to I guess then you move on to Plato and Aristotle. Although Socrates, none of them are particularly my favorites, but you do need that context and that kind of conceptual framework. And then you very quickly move on to Machiavelli, because really, for 500 years, it was, there wasn't a lot going on, I suppose. And then you quickly go into Machiavelli, and there's just so much good writing there. And I guess you go into Goethe, and then you go into, which is sitting right over there, and then you go into Hobbes, I guess. So I'm doing all my reading of these things right now, because most people should have seen this in January, what was happening, what was quickly coming to us. And it really wasn't the virus. It was, the propaganda that was being used, the deliberate stewing of chaos within our population. They were deliberately sowing a lot of social discord.
Yep.
None of this surprised me. To the day, none of this surprised me. And sometimes I retweet things on Twitter, and it's really not my way of saying I told you so. It's really my way of just kind of reminding people that they need to kind of have an inner dialogue.
Like these things can be predicted ahead of time.
Well, they need to have an inner dialogue, and most people aren't. I see a lot of people on Twitter, and everybody seems to have an opinion about everything, no matter how uninformed it is. And a lot of people, will say that they were right in January about wearing masks, and they weren't right in January about wearing masks. And then people will say, well, I told that we should shut down the economy in January. Had we done that? And that's actually because I'm an expert in this. I study this. I would say that I'm truly a specialist in some of this stuff. It's what I do all the time, and I can share my screens with you. It's ridiculous how much I spend on this, time I spend on this. Is that true, Nancy?
Yeah, a lot.
Tell him. Tell him.
He spends a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah, and so I would say that they were all wrong, but they're never they're very good at persuading themselves and then finding kind of Twitter adherents. So that goes from Balaji, and they all have their own kind of reasons for being wrong, which is also very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But it shows you that this can never resolve itself. It's never going to resolve itself. And I call this three things now. Fastest roll-up of power in history. But so that people can better give a visual to it, I call it Dark City is one element, because while we're being deliberately locked away, so because in Western democracies, one of the problems for the elites within a Western democratic system and a republic system is that kind of within our nucleus as a people, we have some notions of democracy, and that has to be taken away. And the only way that they can take that away is to lock you away for a couple of years until you won't remember it. And then you've created so much disequilibrium within the population, within our people operating system. You've created and preserved and sustained so much disequilibrium that people will not have the intellectual capacity, the historical familiarity. They won't have the availability of those founding and historical documents, the Scottish Enlightenment, Enlightenment. So they won't be able to restore what was, and they won't even be able to recreate it. So it's going to be very interesting to observe, and that's what I've really tried to do. I've really tried to chronicle it. So something else I would say is that we are the elites. Not only have they been very cruel in a malicious way rather than a kind of a good cruelty, which there is such a thing, I believe. They've been very what they've done is they've made everybody have to solve the trolley problem. Okay, so now everybody is now being forced to come up with their own unique solution for the trolley problem. And not only must they solve the trolley problem, but now they must also go to the front of the classroom and get a unanimous agreement from their classmates on the solution that they've arrived at, which is not possible in our very atomized, very solipsistic type of world we're living in right now. Your generation and the generation right below your generation can't even get into an agreement on the color green, or you can't even get into agreement on the definitions of words, right? This is a unique problem that you guys are encountering right now. So you're never going to be able to get into an agreement on we can afford to kill grandpa, but we don't want to lose grandma. And, there's just, so the trolley problem can never be resolved. And everybody in the world is having to present their solution to the trolley problem, except for me, because I refuse to play. And I'd rather just kind of keep my mouth shut and chronicle all this. And the other way I would describe it is not just the trolley problem, which is this kind of imaginary, kind of way of encountering this problem, encountering this problem. But then it's also kind of the Jigsaw. You know that movie Saw?
I don't know if I've seen that. I haven't seen movies in a while.
Yeah, Nancy, I don't see movies, period. I think I've endured maybe one movie in 10 years or 5 years. What was the last movie I saw? Freaky. I did. I saw a movie. It was excellent. I saw Freaky.
Yeah, I'm the same. Once every 5 years.
I saw Hair. I watch Hair, the movie, a lot. And Jesus Christ Superstar, because Nancy and I play a lot of Scrabble. And that's it. But so there's a movie called Saw, right? And there's like 5 parts of it now, or 6 parts of it, maybe even 7. And it's this guy, and he people wake up and he's like, do you want to play a game? And they're like locked up in some type of a cage, and they've got 30 seconds to free themselves of it, or their eyes get ripped out, or something horrible happens to them. And so it's also, not only is there a trolley problem, but it's there's a kind of an electric shock that people, that also courses through people with if they arrive at unsatisfactory solution, because if you tell anybody, if you discuss with anybody in any type of interplay, any type of dialectical discourse about COVID, ultimately you're going to wind up with them furious at you because you want to kill their grandma, but they're in agreement that they can lose their uncle because they don't like their uncle anyway, but you want to kill their grandma. It's just the most ridiculous conversation. And again, you got to read a lot of philosophy, so I apologize.
Well, so tell me this. I mean, I would be curious to know your position for how far on the conspiracy spectrum are you? And this ranges from
conspiracy.
Well, okay, so I'll create definitions, right? So have the elites, or those who power is rolling up to, There's a couple different possibilities, and I'm probably not considering all of them. So you can fill in the gaps for possibilities I'm not considering. So one possibility, they have plans for how they want to amass power, and they wait for emergencies or crises to use as an excuse to get power. So that's one thing that we know happens, right? So then the question is, given that we're seeing that there is a roll up in power here, are the people who are rolling up power making use of a plan that they made 3 years ago and saying, "Oh, this is the time to do it now"? Other alternative is some sort of intentional catalyst to get the ball rolling, so that we can roll up power right now in 2020 rather than maybe 2018, maybe 20.
What you're asking me to do now is to speculate, right? And
Okay.
I don't. And ultimately, you're asking me to speculate on the origins and kind of what came before. And I'm going to decline doing that, because that's going to again bring me to trying to solve the trolley problem, or have to listen to your solution to the trolley problem. And I don't want to do that. I think we just have to observe kind of this moment for what it is. And I think it's very important for people to keep a daily log. And I think about it when I try and describe it to other people. I think that, when I was a kid, I remember just being in my school and in the library and discovering Anne Frank. It was never suggested to me. I just walked by and I saw it on a shelf. I said, let me start reading this. And, the second you read that when you're a kid, it changes everything for you, right? It's an incredible book. It's probably going to be taken off the shelves and blackballed at some point soon. Nevertheless, and then then with a little bit more of inquiry, you learn that maybe in the introduction or in some other type of, ancillary type of commentary to it, you learn that, it was part of a contest, right? That the kids were being encouraged to keep a diary, and there was going to be some type of kind of a bounty for it. And I think people have to think of this as the same thing, because all of this is going to be lost to history, right? And so we have to kind of become a network wiki history.
Yeah, that's true.
That blonde looks like Britney Spears. So
before she shaved her head, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're right, Adam, about this being erased from history, because I can even remember when I was in my last year or two at Google, I'd been there for 6 years, kind of thinking, do I want to stay here? If I want to stay here, what do I want to do? Do I want to do something impactful? I'm interested in artificial intelligence. Should I look into joining the DeepMind group? And so I was looking at different jobs, different roles that were open for internal transfers on the DeepMind page. And, one of the, they have like an AI ethicist. And if you do a little bit of research to kind of understand what their view of humanity is, it's very clear that they think that the responsible thing to do is to hide facts from people because it's fair.
Well,
because that's the fair thing to do.
Well, so my mentor and a very, loved person just passed on. His name was Reese Schoenfeld. He co-founded CNN with Ted Turner. Then he found the Food Network. Unfortunately, he just left his body. Very sad. And, I think I read someplace in some interview that he gave 30 years ago about how in the early days of CNN, they decided not to cover a white supremacist Nazi, or I don't think it was white supremacist. I think it was a Nazi rally, right? A neo-Nazi rally. And I asked him his thoughts on whether that was censorship and whether he thought that was the right thing. And, we had that conversation, and, he insisted that there is a social responsibility not to promote, not to, give a big platform to those type of thoughts, because they can be very disruptive. So I'm in agreement with them. And it can agitate a population unnecessarily, right? So I don't know whether, Google is making right decisions or wrong decisions, but I don't think that's important. I don't really want to qualify what's going on. I just want to take an inventory and chronicle it. and give the narrative to it, because you see people talking about COVID, and there are some people that are journalists that are claim to be some type of experts in it, and on both sides of the market. I'm very disinterested in them because I think they're wrong also, right?
Mhm.
Because one of the problems of your generation now, and fortunately, you clearly aren't afflicted with it. And I see questions here, so I want to be responsive to them in just a moment. I also see the observation that blonde looks like Britney Spears. That blonde is Nancy. Or actually, that blonde is me. Could have been me. But that blonde is my wife, Nancy. And so, I think that those people who are kind of journalists now, and they have their various accounts, and they're doing whatever they're doing, Alex Berenson, all of them, are very wrong also. They're part of the deliberate confusion that's going on, and this is happening very deliberately, because you'll see the inconsistencies in Fauci's arguments. You'll see it in the information that they present, but you'll also see it in the World Health Organization, and within all of them, every day there's kind of like conflicting and competing information, and that's done deliberately. Because
Really?
yeah, that's being done deliberately. None of this is new. That's being done deliberately to sow discord and to preserve that state of disequilibrium. Because if you don't,
Interesting.
yeah, it's a self-reinforcing loop. It's a positive feedback loop, and if it's discontinued even briefly, then people's senses will be restored. So it used to be, and you're almost too young for this now, but you're just at the end of that age now where the next generation won't know it. But there used to be a time when, Nancy and I, when we wanted to get away from everything, right? We would go to the beach, you bring your books, you don't know anything. Now, and you don't like media, and I don't watch TV, I'm listening to my music in the background, right? And it used to be until about 2015 or so, that if you wanted to escape um, media's intrusion into your life, you could go to the beach and you could just read a book, and that's basically it. These days, there's no longer any place to retreat to. They've intruded into everything, and if you're not watching TV and you're not doing anything, the second you sit at the bar, Nancy and I don't drink, but the second you sit in that kind of common seating area, your neighbors at the table or at the next table are going to be talking about this nonsense. I've gone to Buddhist retreats. I go to a lot of retreats. Nancy goes to a lot of retreats. And I hear the most garbage questions about people asking Krishna Das, who I play in the background, or people asking some people who are they're not in contemplation of politics, right? About how they should react to Trump or this or that. These are all things to deliberately create disequilibrium. And the only thing you can do is not be a participant in it, not allow yourself to be a participant in it.
I see.
So I never cared about Trump. I never care. I dislike Biden immensely, but I'm not going to let Biden's acquisition of the presidency kind of deter me from the enjoyment of my life, because we're still at a point where they can't deeply intrude into all of your sensory awareness. But they're creating all this confusion. So when I hear journalists, they're actually talking about the wrong thing. They're really not being helpful. But the problem is that your generation, everybody is a specialist. So I think that you guys, or the generation that's actually a little bit younger, because our son is a little bit older than you, and like you, he was very intellectually inquisitive, right? You clearly are, but this generation that's growing up now, that's less than 35 years old, perhaps, maybe less than 40, because you're obviously always a very inquisitive kid, but they're trained to be specialists, and they're trained essentially to work on the modern assembly line. They're working
Absolutely, 100%.
assembly line, and the product hits them, they stamp it, and it moves along. Now, in my corporate environment, right, could be what one of my mentors used to call a wandering Jew, right, which isn't anything nasty. It's the phrase of it is I was allowed to kind of walk into all the different offices, right? Now I'm not sure he was deeply observant Jew. So I don't know any of the etymology of the term, but the way I understood it is in my corporate career, I was allowed to walk into all of the different offices, from marketing to sales and to finance. And I literally used to sit in our CFOs and our chairmans, and they would allow me to kind of infiltrate their little what did Superman call it? That fortress of solitude. They would allow me to infiltrate it, right, as an interloper into it. And they were very sharing with me, but it allowed me to get a real system view. So you get to learn how organisms live. It's like that movie. You may not remember it because you don't see any of this stuff anyway. But as a kid, we grew up with it, and Raquel Welch is in it. And they shrink people down, and then they inject them into the human body.
Is it like beast? Not beast.
No, that thing where they shrink people down, they inject them into the human body. Remember that? And and then like they have 24 hours to do something.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Is that?
No, it's really good. It's a classic. But people today of your generation don't have any sense of a system view.
Of course.
I hear these journalists talking about crap like hydroxychloroquine, and they're doing the wrong thing.
Right.
Something should be, in a sense, deplatformed, and that sounds horrible to say, but because they think that they're spreading some type of truth.
Right.
I think they're creating just as much disinformation as the side that I'm more in opposition to, which is the pharmaceutical side. I think if people really want to attack kind of the bacteria, right, the invasive bacteria or the invasive germs, they Fantastic Voyage. They have to go after pharmaceutical and the industry, and not after this. They're right now. All they're doing is they're arguing over the merits of a TV commercial, right? COVID is just a TV commercial. These people are arguing about the aesthetics of a TV commercial. I'm much more interested in not allowing pharma to advertise on TV.
Yeah.
In that type of a parable, if that makes any sense to you.
Well, look, I'm a similar way as you've surmised, with some of my worldviews, because I was always the guy on my baseball team who actually got good grades and took school seriously because I didn't know any better at the time. And, I worked at a hedge fund for my first job, but then when I switched back in 2011, it wasn't as common for people to jump from finance to tech. And so when I was interviewing at Google, they were requiring me to justify why I wanted to get out of finance and into tech, into sales. And I joined in a sales capacity. And the reason I joined in a sales capacity is because I thought it would be the easiest job to get, which it was. And I also thought that if I wanted to be a successful founder of anything, I needed to develop sales skills. And I'm much more analytically oriented by nature. And so I needed to spend those 2 years pounding the phone. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to pick up on the importance of intonation, different facial expressions, different social signals that all good salesmen are tremendously adept at. I wouldn't have even realized those were important because they're not things that you get tested in, like specifically in an analytical environment. And then when I was transitioning from my sales role to a strategy role at Google that I took for my middle 2 years, I had to justify to them, well, this is why I want to move from sales to strategy, because in their mind, they only see you as a Lego, as like a Lego. It's like, well, you wanted to be the square Lego. Why do you want to be the round Lego? And not too many people have told them, it's like, you realize this whole system works together. And so just because you might be playing one particular role in it, if you have a higher level view, you understand, like, this is how you sell things, and this is what the sales team does. This is what the strategy team does. This is how they work together. And it's obvious what you're saying about the quote unquote most highly educated people within my generation are the best at regurgitating things. And this is what I noticed, first working in finance, but then working at Google, is all of these people with Ivy League degrees are tremendously adept at regurgitating the headlines of the New York Times without any understanding of any substance behind these headlines. And that's what they're judged by. And this is actually what happens in a high-tech environment where time becomes deflationary, meaning as we become busier and busier and busier, and as the economy becomes more and more specialized, number one, if you're my age, you have to be specialized. Like, as a generalist, I don't make as much money yet as the people who've decided to specialize, but because I like being general and being able to, move in 10 different directions at once, that's okay for me. The other thing that, and I'm losing my train of thought right now, regurgitating headlines, crap. I don't know where I was going, but
let's look at some questions because I've talked so much and everyone indulged me, and then I cut you up all the time because I'm so rude. But I see, I see Rude Betty, so thank you very much. And Bo says, hi. I was Bo Hungus before, but you didn't like the last part. I think I recall that. I'm pretty certain I recall that. So I suppose thank you. Thank you for that consideration. So Kakaw says discourse on living. No, discourse on can you put that comment up there? It came in at 11:36 p.m. I can't believe it's that late.
It's gonna be 9:36 my time.
Yeah. Do that one.
Wait, discourse on living or philosopher Hobbes?
No, can you go to 11:36 Kakaw?
Yeah,
right
there's two.
Philosopher Hobbes.
Yeah, there's two comments. Okay, philosopher Hobbes.
So no, right above that, the comment right before, right?
This one?
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's it. So Kaka, no, I'm referring to Machiavelli's Discourse on Livy. So what Machiavelli, who's way underappreciated, just absolutely one of the greatest political philosophers of all time. Certainly my favorite for many, many reasons. But he wrote the Discourse on Livy, which is he took Livy's Histories of Rome, and he looked at how situations were handled in the past, what worked and what didn't work through different kind of political regimes and the turmoil and the turbulence of those times and the outcomes and what worked and what didn't, so that he could better advise the Medicis and kind of give them a good contextual framework for it. So I'm a big fan of Discourse on Livy. I'm a big fan of a lot of his writing, even his. I'll read you some of my own notes because Nancy knows I like to transfer a lot of what I read and see to my own notes. So let's see. There's a poem that he wrote that I really, really liked. Let me find his poem. I was just he wrote it about he wrote it about one of the mistakes is a country always has to be at war. It's just that they should not be. They should only fight one. They should fight one war at a time, but they always have to be in an expansionist mode. They always have to be in a conquest mode. And so he wrote in his poem, he wrote about the condition of Rome and a condition of Florence at that time. He said, if perchance are tempted to accuse nature, if Italy so weary and wounded does not produce hard and bellicose people, this I say is not sufficient to erase our cowardice, for education can supplement where nature is deficient. Stern education made Italy bloom. Let me just go down a little bit. Stern education made Italy. Stern education made Italy bloom in ancient days, and made her rise and conquer the entire world, and for herself make room. But now she lives, if tears can be called life, beneath the ruins and unhappy fate that she has reaped from her long lack of strife. But now she lives, if tears can be called life, beneath the ruins and unhappy fate that she has reaped from her long lack of strife. Right? It's beautiful. So basically, they allowed themselves to become dormant, and they failed at educating their population, and at keeping them prepared for conquest and war. And he was kind of protesting, using his own language. So I don't want to say I'm in agreement with the words he chose, but that their military was he feared was becoming very effeminate, and it would allow them to be conquered easily. And then you can transfer that into modern times, because our own military is a reflection of our own social failures, and our own military is not able to compete on a world stage. So now we have to outsource all of our military adventures to organizations like Blackwater and to private organizations. So again, so thank you, Caw for. And that's a very nice picture. That looks like a California bridge, perhaps. Says they say Discourse on Livy, Machiavelli's Discourse on Livy, and then their comment down below, if you could scroll to that, it's right below. Says the philosopher Hobbes, with an E, Hobbes with an E, and because even as Nancy, I was playing it in bed. I play audiobooks in bed too. I go to sleep listening to this stuff. He talked about the sovereign individual, sovereign state, kind of the what happened after the Westphalia Agreement and changes in sovereignty. These are very important things to understand because right now the world has an abundance of sovereign individuals. Right, we saw that with Hillary. That they not only did they fail to prosecute her, they were disinterested in even any kind of interrogation of evidence. Right, they tried their hardest not to get any evidence, and so it just shows you we have an abundance of elites, an abundance of sovereign individuals, and they are at war against the common person. And this is a historical problem. The elites are always cruel, and they always want to punish the plebs. Okay, so Real Radic Z at 11:39.
Boom.
So says Real Radic Z says, who are the elites? It's a very interesting question because there is, these things kind of radiate like a wheel and the spokes that are delivered from the hub, right? And it's an interesting question. Who are the elites? Because the elites are those who are guiding justice, and the legislation and the laws, and who are implementing it, and who've been able to kind of sustain their political careers, their economic careers, and have extraordinarily outsized influence. But then I will extend that also to those DC nobles, in this instance, who are kind of act as as a phalanx for those elites.
That's always the case. The middle managers, basically.
Well, it's really not always the case. This is the problem of this is not new, but this is the problem in a mature system when I hate to say it, but when you can't kill them off, right? And it was one of the difficulties that we saw with Trump is that you always had a problem, which is the elites, and this goes back thousands of years, but those elites become your rivals, and they've got their own factions, right? You threaten their existence, and usually the tyrant is the most benevolent, right? And usually when a tyrant is in any way displaced, they want to restore that tyrant or some type of a surrogate for the tyrant because they like living the fat life. And one of the challenges that you always had is the prince or the king coming in had two choices, right? You either made friends with the rival factions, or you killed them.
Yep.
And here we don't have that. We have a really dysfunctioning system that needs to be blown up. It cannot sustain itself. It cannot. You can only ward off what's going to happen for so long. So it's also why I ask everybody to invest, because you don't want to suffer the future. And the way to not suffer it is to have the economic capacity to move elsewhere.
So, Adam, tell me, why are you so bullish on the U.S. if you've recently articulated that it seems like there's a metastatic cancer that's emanating from Washington, D.C., but you think the U.S. is the best country in the world to live in?
This is a worldwide problem. This is not just a phenomenon within the U.S. This is throughout the world. This is China. China is much more unstable socially and economically than the U.S. You just don't hear about it because it's not on your TV screen.
Sure.
Right? They've got protests. They're killing people right and left off the mainland. This was an opportunity for them to kill possibly millions of people. This is no joke. They used the Shanghai World's Fair and then the Olympics to cloak their construction of these massive Uyghur camps. This is they've had a lot of disruption socially and economically on the mainland. As you know, I'm kind of this is where I am a specialist as well, and it's one of the few things I'm a specialist in. But I don't want to discuss it too much here because I have to talk about their own banking policies and stuff, and their own kind of the structural integrity of their political system. But it's very, very, very unstable, and they're trying to shore up control. And one of the problems that the world has right now is not only are the elites just horrible because we haven't had any good wars lately, there's just a whole bunch of reasons, but they're also very insecure, and at the same time, people are becoming very unrulable. Right? We're all being torn apart by centrifugal force, and people have become unrulable. And I don't think the resolution to an unrulable people is the strategy that they've employed. I think there was a better way of kind of rebuilding and being cohesive structurally and socially. I think the people operating system that they're constructing is not going to be a very good one. Ultimately, I think we're going to wind up with a monarch of the world. That's where I think we're going to be much quicker than you could ever imagine. Much quicker. It's going to be in your lifetime.
Yeah, I mean that's not impossible. Now the other question is
it's impossible. It's not that it's not impossible. It's going to happen. There's not even a question. It is definitely going to happen. We're already seeing sovereignty, right? We're seeing sovereignty, territorial sovereignty, being displaced by functional sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is
corporate takeovers.
Well, excuse me?
Corporate takeovers.
No. For example, we're seeing now universally the Facebook terms of service.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Displacing kind of constitutional rights and privileges, not just within the U.S. This is happening all throughout the world, and in China it's a little bit of a different people operating system, obviously, but this is deliberately happening, and we're seeing a real megacorp takeover, and we're seeing we're seeing functional sovereignty very quickly displacing territorial sovereignty, and we're seeing in terms of service being swapped in for a constitution. And you will definitely see a monarch, because ultimately the only way you're going to be able to resolve these problems of tremendous dissent. So in 2017, 2018, you were having protests all across Europe, all across Greece, all across South America, all across China, 2018 to 2019 included. Into December of 2019, you had massive protests in Greece, massive protests in Germany, and you had a taxpayer revolt going on across the world, and kind of a wage earner revolt, and also absolute contempt for the elites on accountability. This is a huge problem, and the only way you're going to be able to resolve this is to have a strong man type of a monarch system, and the only way that that institution is going to be able to resolve all this is with a lot of destruction, because you got to look at these things as if you're a sculptor, do you want a fresh slab of marble, or do you want to work on the failed product of another sculptor?
Right. So then is your money on Elon Musk, Xi Jinping, or other?
Elon Musk is a contemporary of Leonardo da Vinci. He's one of the greatest that humankind has produced.
He would be a candidate for world monarch?
I don't think he has. I think politics, and again, people have to enjoy some of the philosophy of this. I don't think he's made for politics. I think he still has a certain type of naivety that he enjoys.
I see.
Yeah, and I don't think he has the cruelty required to be a good politician.
Very Frank Underwood assessment.
I don't know who that is. Oh yeah, that's that character from that TV show. Yeah. So I see some other comments. So Nancy, did you see some questions you thought they were interesting?
Oh yeah.
Didn't we go to Jekyll Island? Was that Jekyll Island South? Was that?
I think is Jekyll Island Sea Island? Did they change the name?
Nancy and I love Sea Island.
Yeah, we love Sea Island.
Is Sea Island Jekyll Island? I'm going to Google that while you guys look at
I don't know. I'm not going to say anything because we love Sea Island.
Do this one from Bo.
Which one? What time?
Bo 11. What was the time?
11:41.
What?
Shit, this was only going to be 5 minutes, right? And I used a curse word during this thing, which I hate to do.
It's
So,
okay.
thank you so much for being here. And you need to get an image, right? You need to get an image, but not a bohungus image. You need to get like some type of an image for your new name. So, Adam, do you think Western civilization is at risk of failing this century? I don't think it's failing at all. I don't think you should confuse anything I say with kind of a bearish sentiment, because I don't have one. And just as Alex said, how can I be so bullish on America? We are. I'm just not nostalgic. If I were to be nostalgic and reminiscent for the way things were, then perhaps I would be bearish. But I'm not. And I'm very excited about what comes next, because I think humankind's going to be in space. I think our kids are going to be astronauts, and I'm very excited about it. Nancy and I had a nice time with our new politician friend, right?
Queensboro president.
No, yeah. Okay. And so and I was his child's only 5 years old, and already I'm telling him to convince his child to be an astronaut. It's crazy. So, so Adam, do you think Western civilization is at risk of falling the century? No, not at all. I think China and America have won the world. And in fact, we have won the world. Indisputably, we have won the world. The world is being bifurcated two ways, us and China. And we are seeing China succeed because of the absolute failure and disgust and contempt I have for Europe, that they gave up a several hundred-year advantage in arts, society, culture, language. Within a 20-year period, basically, they threw it all away. So I don't mourn their loss. I just wish we could have had a more compassionate empire replace it than the Chinese Communist Party. But no, I don't think Western civilization. But again, are you defining Western civilization by some type of a historical artifacts? I'm not sure how you're quantifying it, and what attributes and characteristics and properties you're giving Western civilization. I think that those, like Alex, like our son and his wife and their child, as long as they have a really good education, they read the classics, they're going to do fantastic. And I think Western civilization will flourish. But I think we're now going to have a very, just as we have a bifurcated world where it's us and China against the world, we're going to have a very third world type of disparity between the rich and the poor. And the richer you are, the more availability you'll have for the classics. I think very soon, as all these books and literature are served up audio-wise and via Kindle type of devices, that the Charles Dickens that I read, right, is going to be different than the Charles Dickens that perhaps somebody with lesser money is going to be reading. Theirs is going to be much more the words are going to be different. The use of language is going to be different. It's going to be kind of gutturized and semi-literated, while as the one I have will
vulgar Latin. They're going to be conducting church in vulgar Latin.
Well, I think I'll be reading the Charles Dickens that has fidelity, and unfortunately, there's a whole population that won't be allowed to read that version with fidelity, and instead, all the characters and they're all going to be lost. The Bluest Eye, one of our favorite books, is not going to have the unpleasant scenes and the stories. And it's just so. No, I don't think Western civilization. I think there's still going to be a kind of a Western civilization preservation. It's just not going to be held by the population at large as it is now. So Nancy found another one.
Right underneath it, Rude Betty, 1142.
So Rude Betty, thank you so much for being here. And is that like a coconut tree? What type of tree is that?
Maybe a palm tree.
A palm tree, maybe? It's very nice. So Adam, that's saying, did the fall of Rome create the end of Western civilization? I'm not sure if Rome ever really fell. It fell to Alaric, certainly. And the elites there were very happy to conceal themselves in Ravenna. But I'm not sure if it ever really fell, because you still had the Holy Roman Empire. The church still exists. Its culture still exists. I think that, it was an empire that was broken up and turned into fragments. And certainly the fall of the Mediterranean Southern culture led to the rise of France and other things. But I don't know if there really was a fall of Rome, or it just kind of became a butterfly and changed its appearance and shape and the way we can conceptualize it.
Adam, this might be a dumb question, but what's the connection between Rome and the Holy Roman Empire?
What's the
What's
relation?
the connection? I did not think that the Holy Roman Empire was Roman.
Oh yeah, no. I'm going to send you a lot of books then, man. You and I'll do a Periscope. Maybe we'll do it with Jim Shaughnessy, all three of us, and we'll talk about some good books.
Dude, Jim has better Twitter memes than anybody half his age.
Jim is an awesome guy. He's such a thoughtful person, and he really desires so much to transfer everything that he's got kind of in his head and have that potted into other people's heads. So, Nancy.
Real Radic Z 1143.
Oh, Dark City comparison, speed of information. So thank you so much, Real Radic Z, for joining us, and I recognize the name. So thank you again. Although, did you change the image that you used? So Real Radic Z says Dark City comparison. That looks like that's either a hot dog bun or applause. So the speed of information. I became friends with Alex Proyas, who's the writer, director, and producer of it, and I think I depressed him a little bit because Dark City has a happy resolution where humanity wins at the end. I'm not sure. I think that right now our techno elites, the Zuckerbergs and the Bezoses of the world, have kind of a contemptuous relationship with humanity, and they look at humanity as a failed business model. So I'm not sure if it's going to have the same type of resolution. But so Dark City comparison, you've got to see the movie, and you also have to see the commentary tracks as well, because there's so much that you're going to miss unless you see unless you see it. But yeah, because people are falling asleep, and when they reawaken, they've changed, right? They no longer have the memories of their former life. Every night they take on a new life, and that new life has new memories, and it's very comprehensive and complete. So yeah, it's a great movie. It's a classic, much better than Matrix. Do you think it's better than Matrix?
I love the Matrix, but I actually think Dark City is better than Matrix.
It's a much more thought provoking.
Yeah, and
movie.
Matrix took a lot of things from Dark City, obviously.
It did. But I'm going to be interested to see what he does, what the sisters now do with it, because remember they said that they're now going to make it the story of her, Carrie, whatever her real name, Carrie Moss, Trinity, and that the movie was always supposed to be about to be about Trinity, as this kind of transgender hero. So I think that might be an interesting thing.
Okay, Kim gets 1151.
I can't believe we've been on this for so long. Can you believe that?
That's what happens when you got two functional brains on both sides. And just talk about.
There's many people, and I'm appreciative of them all joining us here. And so I would include them within that, right? It's like a dinner party. So Kim gets at 1151.
Yeah, Kim gets 1.
Right below that.
Gets, yeah,
right below that comment about Nancy, right? The Britney Spears thing. That's pretty fun.
What, Wikipedia? Which one? The history is written by the winners?
Yeah.
Well, right now, history is not being written. History is being unwritten, right? And soon history will never have happened. And that's why all of us have to be Anne Franks, and we all have to keep a diary, and we have to keep a chronicle. Otherwise, this is all happening faster than the mind can comprehend. And I know, Kim, you've heard me say that before, but it's really important. Think about yourself as Anne Frank, and I'll be Anne Frank too, because that's our kind of obligation to our children and to our grandchildren. And it's not to tell them how wonderful everything was in the past, because I don't think everything is wonderful now. But it is to say that things were different, so that you can be the Thucydides to them. So I don't know. History is being torn down. And again, think of that marble statue that Jeff Bezos wants to start with a clean slate. And that requires taking everything that preceded down. They're going to be the new founding fathers.
But I mean,
that's the case, then you buy Amazon stock, right? I mean,
but do you really think that's the case with these tech moguls? Because they're yes, obviously Amazon does.
What do you mean by tech mogul?
Okay, so Amazon didn't exist 25 years ago, right? Obviously, Jeff Bezos is very adept at antitrust law and understands what he can get away, what anti-competitive behaviors he can get away with, and he wants to play by rules that he defines that benefit him. I get that. However, he's not a blue blood. He's not a skull and bones guy, right? He didn't inherit his kingdom. He built it. So, do you not think that the elites who built their own kingdoms would be less apt to destroy what has been built by others and simply build their own version of what they want next?
I think you're looking at it completely wrong. I think Jeff Bezos is either he's Philip of Macedon or he is Alexander the Great. It's yet to be determined. But we have to look at these people in some type of a context of who they are and what they're doing. I would actually say that Elon Musk is probably more Alexander the Great if I were to give some type of properties to it. I would say that he's more Alexander the Great because I think SpaceX is more innovative than anything Jeff Bezos has done. Jeff Bezos has basically just done a good job of converting taxpayer assets to his balance sheet.
I've heard you say that.
Yeah. Well, as I think that Elon Musk is he's Alexander the Great, and you need a lot of technology to win wars, and his scientists can create a lot of new technology to win wars, and he was brave and he had virtue, and
I mean, is he not doing that as well with energy subsidies?
Who? Elon?
Yeah.
Energy subsidies.
What's up?
What's wrong with energy subsidies? You're getting an energy subsidy right now. Do you want to pay for the additional burden that electricity really costs?
So then, which assets is Amazon converting to its own balance sheet that Tesla or Alex Feinberg as the individual might not be?
I wouldn't even know where to begin. I mean, just the tax inversions that Amazon's initial business model was built off of tax arbitrage. That's all.
Like sales tax?
No, not just sales tax. They were getting a lot of stateless income, and I'd have to explain the way tax inversions and tax trees and arbitrage works and kind of tax routes work. But their basic business model from the days of Kindle was built off of intellectual property being stateless income.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to.
Well, I think I've read you talked about it. When it's not worth that much, they sub-license it to some offshore entity at a low price, and then that offshore entity is the one that's actually booking all the profits. Never brings them on shore, so it never has to pay corporate taxes on it, and just holds a bunch of money in the Caribbean or Ireland or something like that.
Yeah, well, there's different iterations of it. There's hundreds of different iterations, and there's hundreds of different schemes and several different tax routes. The greatest tax route right now in the world is a Delaware corp. Right now, you don't have availability to it because I don't think you have that type of a net worth that can spend the money to utilize those type of things. But you've got Amazon, you've got Facebook, and you've got these corporations, these megacorps that are basically breaking apart billions of dollars of revenue into thousands of different subsidiaries.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're doing it into thousands of subsidiaries, they don't have to disclose those earnings and those balance sheets. And I'm using that as an abbreviation. They can, because those subsidiaries are not in themselves financially impactful to their earnings. They're breaking something down that is financially impactful into thousands of different subsidiaries. And then once they're in that Delaware Corp, they're kind of reassembling it. So it's kind of like a teleporter in Star Trek where they break everything down into billions of different kind of like electrons and protons, mm-hmm. reassemble them when a teleporter, reaches its destination, right? And they're doing the exact same thing. It's a teleporter, and it's very, very bad. They're not paying their taxes, and they have people persuaded that paying taxes is virtuous. It's just a sickness. It's an absolute sickness in our society. We are so morally corrupt. We have the worst election in definitely in American history. When we have a fourth world election, that just went on. And I don't care about Trump and I don't care about Biden, but it just shows you the moral depravity that we have is just, it's absurd. It's absurd, and that's why I support Ali Alexander so much, because he's the only one that maintains some sort of honor, right? That these things, and and look at Russ today with his pay me in Bitcoin, and then today he got paid in Bitcoin. You've got to have real honor. This is what makes societies great, when you have real honor, and yet people are unwilling to have that type of honor because you've got to have real courage.
Right. Well, it's so interesting how courage has been defined, misdefined, redefined, and it could lend to your view of the intentional sowing of discord. Where if you look at who the mainstream media calls courageous, brave,
cowards, and they're the cowards.
Yeah. Right.
Cowardice is now virtuous, just as China has their own kind of definition of virtue. And I'd have to talk about their social credit system. And I have to give you some translation because the words don't match as well. There's not a lot of equivalencies in certain things. But still within our virtue is now our virtue is now suffering. It's the weirdest thing. It's cowardice. One of the people are now rewarded for the amount of suffering that they can bear. It's just such a sickness, the amount of corruption that they can bear. This is absurd. Even in the worst tyrannies, you had the king afraid that he was going to get killed and turned over. Even in Chinese party, they're afraid that they're going to get killed and turned over. Here, they're operating without any fear of opposition. It's disgusting. And I see these people congratulating themselves because Biden win. Biden's going to be 10 times worse. At least with Trump, we kept him under a microscope.
Well, and so this is what happens when you have a bunch of people in my generation who don't understand systems and understand the micro components within those systems. And then the question is has that been created by design, or is that just the natural consequence of a ever expanding and more intricate economy that demands skills that are that narrow?
It's greed. Greed has never had so many ways to express itself. And there's just, I want to take more questions. Nancy, do you see any?
Yeah, Bo 1153 about censorship.
So Bo, thank you again for your comment, and I'm so appreciative because we just did this. I didn't even know he made this live. Is that the one, Nancy?
Yeah, that's right.
So Bo says the censorship is far more agitating now because their filters don't cover all of society anymore. I'm very interested in what you mean by that. So if you could expand on that, Bo, I think that's very interesting. And it reminds me, and I think it's kind of not even kind of peripherally I think it's just a tangent, but just the words you use remind me of a Periscope I did with Alam Bukhari, who wrote a book, Deleted. And it was, he covered out how the media was out to kill, the tech companies were out to kill Trump. I don't really look at it like that because I was never a big fan of Trump or not a fan of Trump. I kind of look at it kind of as objectively as I can. I look at it as, Nancy and I are of an age where we remember that the Iraq wars was supposed to last us 1 year. And we were supposed to be in and out of Afghanistan and in and out of Iraq for 1 year. We were lied to. And, I want to end these wars. And how are we ever going to end these wars? And now, the activists with Black Lives Matter and everything else, and I'm not discussing the worthiness of their causes or anything else. I'm just saying the activists engaged with that have become the most war belligerent I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen anything like this, the most bellicose, belligerent, warmongering, and that's because they feel so socially incapacitated. They feel so socially, politically, and economically incapacitated that they can't rally for real change.
Yeah. If this is an offshoot of a wage earner revolt.
It's stupidity because they've been so economically, socially, and politically incapacitated that all they can do is now carry the Nike banner and like a phalanx themselves, a phalanx for Amazon
Nike sells $50 equality shirts made in Vietnam, in case anybody wants one.
Who does? What does that? Do they really?
Yeah, I'll pull it up right now. Put it in the chat. They literally sell equality T-shirts for like $50. Let's see what we got.
Matthew, did you see an interesting question?
Yeah, Matthew E. Parks, 1226, I think it is.
Oh, I see. 1 second. Let's see what's pull that back up.
So excited to respond to that question.
Yes, put that one up there.
So Matthew E. Parks, thank you so much for joining us. And you've got the classic picture that you use for your bio. It looks like you're in a car. So you got one of those like I'm in a car type of picture. So it's very nice. So Matthew E. Parks says, can Belt and Road succeed if the Chinese Communist Party loses a significant percentage of overseas investment? Very, very, very interesting question. And in fact, I'm going to be doing a Periscope soon with Kyle Bash, who's a friend, and we're going to be discussing kind of some recent developments there. And I did a Periscope about 2 months ago with Leyland Miller, who founded a company called China Beige Book, which is really kind of a spy agency, a financial spy agency that he's planted into the Chinese Communist Party. The interesting thing is that the Belt and Road has completely failed. I mean, I was writing about the Gwadar port and a CPEC, which is a Chinese-Pakistan financial relationship to build up a lot of infrastructure in Pakistan. It's completely failed for a whole bunch of different reasons. Number one, the Chinese Exim Bank was never adequately funded, and the AIIB, their trade bank, was never their alternative trade bank was never adequately funded. That's always been a mechanism for the elites within China to launder their money outside, and they don't want the ports of Shangri-La, right? That's not what they wanted. They wanted a place to launder their money out of into Nigeria. They wanted to take some lumber out of it. So Belt and Road is something different than is kind of discussed within the U.S. And what Leyland said, and I'm completely in agreement with it, is that every mom and pop store that gets opened up that now has some type of a Chinese ownership to it is called Belt and Road, almost like it's just become some type of absurd trademark. And so Belt and Road has completely failed for many reasons. Number one is that they preyed on very economically vulnerable countries, and now those countries cannot afford to service their loans. I've discussed Bolivia a lot. I've discussed Pakistan a lot. I could also discuss Djibouti a lot. And if Trump had retained office, then I think that the Chinese Communist Party would have had from top down a lot of turnover because the elites were very displeased with the current small party there. You're just seeing a lot of defaults, and these are very important things because the elites really were never very excited about the strategy that the Chinese Communist Party was employing. It was very predatory, and it wasn't really going to be able to give them liquidity. So, in the 1980s, in the 1970s and 80s, you had the KGB kind of exfiltrating itself out of the USSR and going into Eastern Europe and going into other markets. The Chinese elites wanted to do the same thing, and you've seen them buying things for a couple billion here and a couple billion there. No, they've got hundreds of billions. They've got trillions to move out of that place, and it's been a complete failure. So in response to your question, can Belt and Road succeed if the Chinese Communist Party loses a significant percentage of overseas investment? The thing I'm really worried about is that Biden is going to do I know he's going to do a China reset, whatever language he gives to it, and whatever type of catchphrase that he gives to it, and a slogan that he gives to it. He's going to do a China bailout or a China reset, like a Hillary Russia reset. It's going to cause enormous damage. It's going to immediately we're going to see some wars, which is why I've been buying Boeing, why everyone knows I like Boeing, and we're going to see a lot of military expeditions from China. And unfortunately, I think another one of the consequences of a Biden presidency is that we're going to see the total fulfillment of their infiltration into the credit rating systems, the agencies, the Fitch, the Moody's, and to the IMF. And we're going to see them. We're going to see American tax dollars bailing out the debtor nations, the client countries of Belt and Road, to service their debts to China. And it's going to be
and nobody's going to understand that.
we're already seeing it. I mean, we've already seen it with this budget now, where we want to bail out some
Definitely.
women in Pakistan.
Definitely.
But we've already seen, you know, the NGO apparatus getting strengthened, because Pakistan just got bailed out by the IMF, and it was a no questions asked bailout. And I'm going to bore everybody with it, but essentially, the Belt and Road finances are opaque, right? They're not transparent like the way Western banking systems are. Theirs is completely opaque. Nobody knows the terms of the deals. And what people like myself were hoping is that one of the major condition of the bailout of the $4 billion bailout of Pakistan was that we were going to compel them to open up their the Belt and Road contracts for inspection, and that didn't happen. And we're going to see that. I can tell you right now, Biden's going to allow Djibouti to service its debt to China, and we're going to lose that port. And China's going to put their PLA Marines on Djibouti. I mean, it's going to be bad. But I think the Belt and Road in itself collapses. I think that's irrevocable. I think what you think of as the Belt and Road has failed. They're not as durable as a Western system. So when people say, you know, I'm bearish on our system, and somebody else was asking about our Western system, I'm very, very bullish on it. I think ours is more durable. I genuinely believe our system is changing, but that it's more durable than anything that's ever come before. It's just changing into kind of it's mutating into something different. Hopefully we can restore some semblance of sanity to it and restore equilibrium. Nancy, you saw something?
Yeah, Scotty 224 at 1226. He wants to know that.
Scotty 224. I recognize that picture. So thank you very much for joining us again. And it's both of you on a motorcycle. Your female companion is attending to it. She's driving it, and neither one of them are wearing a helmet. Look.
What state is that then?
Yeah, what state is that? Because I'm a bike rider, and you don't even have the goggles on, so you guys are eating flies, right? But you're both a beautiful couple, so enjoy it. I'm sure you both arrived at your destination safely. So good for you guys. So Scotty 224 says, what was the second thing you mentioned to see or read? Well, there's a lot. So I would start. One of the things I've become a real fan of is the Great Courses. I don't know if anybody's familiar. Alex, have you ever seen the Great Courses? So the Great Courses, I like the Dr. Kenneth Harl discussion of history of the Peloponnesian War. I think it's like he has like 34. It's a course, and he has 34 lectures. I think they're about half an hour each. And I think you might want to even read that in advance. You might not even want to read the history of the Peloponnesian War. I've enjoyed it, but you might not enjoy it. But I think you will definitely enjoy the Kenneth Harl series on history of the Peloponnesian War. It's absolutely brilliant. You'll have a really good appreciation for the complexities and the intricacies of that time, military adventures and such, and the personalities like Alcibiades and Pericles. And he's also got some interesting ones about Rome, incidentally, which I think are really brilliant. And then they have other courses also that you might enjoy. So I just did one. I've read The Republic and I've read Plato a couple of times. But I really liked the lecture series that they had from Michael Segru about Plato. Yale University on YouTube has a series. So you go to Yale University and then go to their playlist, and you'll see that like number 30 on their playlist is about 20 lectures on political philosophy. I would definitely recommend that. And then you might find ones that you're kind of particularly interested in, more inquiry into, because I think he starts at Plato himself, and he just continues generationally. So there's just so much, but I think that's there's an urgency to reading these things as well. Again, and I really like Machiavelli. I like Hobbes. I like the idea of sovereignty, because I think we're dealing now with an abundance of sovereigns, and that's a very dangerous thing, because they're sovereigns decide the law, they decide what justice is, and we're seeing kind of the result of that now. It's not good. So if that was responsive, Nancy, did you see anything else?
Yeah, Midwest Gal 1217.
What time do you see that?
1217, right? That's what it is?
Yeah.
1217.
Oh, we're going backwards now. I see.
So Midwest Gal 3535. Nancy says she likes your mask. You like that mask?
Yeah.
Is that a mask or is that like a down covered up?
I don't know. It's cool though. I like
It does look cool. It does look cool. Where do you think this monarchy will be centralized from? Well, I think the U.S. and China have won the world. I just don't think there's any way around it. Our economy is a $20+ trillion economy. There's no second place right now, although China is definitely emergent, and it's difficult to say what comes next with them because they've got a lot of volatility in their system also, but they're clearly second place right now, a distant second place, but we don't have a lot of there isn't as much we don't have the same time advantage as we've had historically over them. We used to have a few-year time advantage. Now we probably got about 3-year time advantage over them. Hopefully we'll keep. But I think that that our monarchy, the Western monarchy, which is going to compete with the Chinese Communist Party, mutation, whatever that is, or its later iterations, is you're seeing it already form. It just hasn't announced itself yet. So you're seeing it codifying. You're going to see it really become regimented under a Biden administration and under Warren or whatever ventriloquist dummy they put on, whatever dummy they put on the ventriloquist lap that they appointed a ventriloquist lap. Nevertheless, you're seeing it happen now. It hasn't announced itself yet. So if you're asking me, when will it announce itself, and will it be announcing? Will it be a Western power that announces itself as the monarchy? It will definitely be our companies are just incredible. I mean, you work for Google. Google's winning the world. There's just no doubt about it. They have infiltrated our government. They've infiltrated it so deeply, and Amazon has done such a good job of kind of being this parasite that ate the host that that they no longer even need to maintain any facade of a legislative branch anymore, or an executive branch, or judiciary branch. I mean, it's just remarkable. So, but they need to take away history first. They need history to have never happened, which I wasn't surprised to see the statue of Abraham Lincoln in Boston torn down. I was expecting this, and now I don't know a lot of these social character figures, but who's that woman, like Leona Brown or something, she was like killed by cops. She was part of like some drug ring or something. You know what I'm talking about? She's like a big rallying cry.
Yeah, I don't remember her name.
And now I saw that one of her statues was just defaced. And these things they have to tear down everything. They have to, because again, it's that statue, it's that marble. If you're going to make a statue, and you're going to form this kind of beautiful statue, you are either going to do it on a fresh slab of marble, or you're going to do it on the remains of an inferior sculpture.
So they need to release the autoimmune disease on the population.
It's not that they're released. They needed to take away democracy. They needed to enact all these emergency powers. They needed to rewrite the constitutions, and they needed to make a democracy and a republic a distant memory. Because now people's idea of freedom already is just being able to walk outside without a mask, right? So freedom has been rewritten as well. And you don't remember the way it was in December. I'm not going to test you, because trust me, I've documented everything and I've kept a really good archive. You don't remember the way it was in December. You think you do. You think you do. You don't. You don't remember any of the headlines. You just remember there's a little bit of emotional content you remember. There's a couple of postcards you remember in your head. Maybe you remember that Mueller testified. Maybe you remember that Soleimani was killed. Maybe you remember al-Baghdadi was killed. Maybe you remember Trump tried to poison some koi in a pond. Maybe you remember Stormy Daniels. Maybe you remember this or that. You remember these things kind of episodically, and you remember them kind of as a faded Polaroid, but that's about it. It's this is done deliberately. They want the brain is a mall, right? It's a shopping mall, and they have leased every stall in that mall, and there's not a there's no room left over for your own thoughts. So the monarchy will announce itself, but there's got to be a lot of blood before then, and I think that all of us just have to make sure that we are not the bloody, right? And the only way you can do that is if you know the elites are self-dealing to themselves through using the U.S. markets, which they're clearly doing. Then it's your obligation, right, to invest. And the tactic you've chosen, Alex, is to do it through Bitcoin. And people say, well, Bitcoin is this reflection of a failed central banking policy and the devaluation of the dollar. They don't know what they're talking about. So please don't. I don't want to hear that, because it's completely wrong and it's completely uninformed. I think the dollar stays supreme. The Chinese don't even want, people who say Chinese are taking, have no idea what they're talking about, because the Chinese don't even want their own garbage yuan. Every chance they get, they try and get out of their Chinese yuan. They've got a dual currency. I've written about this before. They don't even want their own crappy Mao money, right? Everybody wants the US dollars. US dollars, trillions of dollars of US dollars are held in the banks. They don't want the yuans. Part of the failure of the Belt and Road was that when they devalued the yuan, I'll get boring with it, but the currency swaps that they had with their client countries basically bankrupted the countries, because they were holding yuan in their banks, and then the yuan collapsed, and it left them with huge shocks in their banking system. So they're all having to come back to the dollar now, and he's all sleepy now. I'm wide awake.
I'm the old guy who doesn't understand how to use StreamYard.
Xavier at 12:06.
This one right here, right? Xavier? Is that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So Xavier 845652843. Is that some type of a code, right? Is that like a Morse code type of thing that I tap it out and I get a Beatles album or something? So says Adam, who is rolling up power in your view, and should we learn Mandarin? I think that the world is being bifurcated, and I don't think that Mandarin. And again, remember something: if you were learning Mandarin, you're going to learn a simple form of Mandarin, which is not their the language that's used within either their diplomacy or their legal documents. So you would basically be learning. It's the equivalent of not learning English, but learning this type of guttural. Who writes this type of things? Like, who's the Ann Coulter equivalent? And I hate his writing. I don't like Ann Coulter. And then who's the other guy? Ta-Nehisi Coates. You ever read his books? They're horrible. So when somebody says, "Well, because I saw Amazon, so I never read that garbage," but they're like political screeds, and it's like so when you say should we learn Mandarin, you would be basically learning the guttural language of an Ann Coulter or Ta-Nehisi Coates. This type of nonsense. They're good for barroom conversations, but they're not the language that's used in legal documents within their medical industry, within their STEM or high tech industry. So you'd be learning, what would be called simple Mandarin, which would be great for one of their fulfillment centers, working in one of their fulfillment centers. But that's about it. No, English is under no threat. All the legal contracts of substance in the world are written in English. No, we're not in any threat. I don't see anything displacing America. I see that we're going back to a time before Westphalia, where sovereignty is changing, right? And that also means culture has to accommodate it. Our regimes are changing. We have a surplus of nobles and elites and sovereign individuals, and that's going to change, because those people always wind up in jail in the end, because they threaten the dictator, right? So when you have a tyrant come in and a dictator come in, he's going to take all of the adversarial factions and throw them in jail. That's the way things work, right? So right now, Antifa is being used to displace the DC elites primarily, and to be this terrorist force, and that's going to be effective for another few years. But again, those tyrannies always turn on themselves. That's the design of these things. So Nancy, do you see something interesting?
Yeah. Bo again at 11:55.
Oh, Sita Ram, 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 Sita Ram. Okay, you got up there. World Health Bo, thank you again. I've talked so much, right? The World Health Organization changed their definition of herd immunity very recently. Well, when in any discussion of the World Health Organization, wake up, Alex. So any definition of the World Health Organization, any conversation about it has to give some type of, again, a history, right? We can't let history be wiped out. So these are why we have to have history. So World Health Organization, in around 2002, there was a SARS epidemic. I could go way back with the World Health Organization, but let's just start in 2002. There was a SARS epidemic, a SARS pandemic, actually, although let's just call it a SARS outbreak. It was a SARS outbreak, which is more a clinical term for it. And China failed to notify the World Health Organization and other countries, which risked it spreading. And as a result of that, as a consequence of that, they created new regulations. One of them is what's called the IHR, International Health Regulations, which was enacted in 2005. I've read it pretty extensively, actually. And the China violated a lot of several articles of the International Health Regulations, and the world in 2019 and early 2020, they violated many of the articles. Off the top of my head, 5, 9, 11, 13. And World Health Organization did also similar, and there's a checklist that has to be gone through in order to figure out if something's a violation or not. And I've gone through all these, and so have lawyers. So has our own minority party in Congress. They created a very interesting document. I'm happy to share if people ask me about it. And they are, they unleashed. There's been no prosecution of any of their failures. There's been none whatsoever. So when you say the World Health Organization changed your definition of herd immunity very recently, there was no definition of pandemic until just a year or so ago. There was no definition of pandemic. This was an issue in 2009, going all the way back. I mean, this is a big issue in 2009 with H1N1, right, which is now just part of the regular flu mix. At that time, the World Health Organization and the pharmaceuticals were demanding $100 or so billion to come up with the remedy, right, and save the world. It turned out that it had, again, also very low morbidity. You can even go back before that into 2005. You can go to the Ebola. You can go to 2001 period where Britain had the hoof and mouth, and they culled millions and millions of livestock. They destroyed the farming and agricultural industry within Britain. I bore you with, these are things I spent a lot of time on. So you're looking at just one instance of the deliberate confusion, and I'm saying that this is pervasive, and it's there's been no prosecution of it, and I think our elites are working harmoniously with Chinese Communist Party and with the World Health Organization, and they're deliberately creating confusion because lies, if they were to say outright lies, they could be, easily disproven, right? So one of the tactics of propaganda is you don't say outright lies. You instead create confusion, right? Because confusion and chaos is a nonstop battle, right? It's a rapidly moving stream. So that's what they're doing. Nancy, do you see something else?
Yeah, JM 1243 at 1258.
Oh, that's a very exciting question because I'm involved in it in India, right? So JM1243, you need a picture. I'll just imagine a picture for you, okay? I see a puppy. So Adam, what kind of impact will quantum computing have on the world? Please, the pros and cons. Very technical questions. I'm going to keep it, unfortunately, at the cislunar level, which is right now you still have, just as you had a lot of skeptics about Tesla, right? And a lot of people who, their entire identity was about criticism of Elon Musk, criticism of Tesla and Solar City and everything Elon Musk, right? And even Alex with his slamming of energy credits, although he's happy to receive them for his own home electricity, right? So I would say that
this is just a definitional thing. I will absorb all the subsidies I'm given. I'm just trying to clearly delineate between Elon and Jeff.
there's a lot of government intrusions into the energy market. So it's a complex question, and it's also complex even to, yeah, I mean, I'm involved in it, so I don't want to bore people with it. But nevertheless, with quantum, so right now it's kind of voguish again for people to say, well, it's never going to happen, and just as they said that Tesla was never going to happen, SpaceX was never going to launch their ships, and um, here we are, right, where Tesla's SpaceX is taking over the world. I mean, it's ridiculous. They're the envy of the world. Elon Musk is adored everywhere but in America. It's kind of weird. So I would say that quantum is very interesting because right now you're still at the place where everything is still being, and it takes years to resolve, everything is still being tested against supercomputing, and you only have so much supercomputing capacity. So right now, the world has a big problem, which is we're all launching thousands of satellites, and you need a navigation system when you've got thousands, and you need a logistics system, right? Like just like you have logistics companies for ocean travel, air travel, you need the same thing for space travel. And in space travel, even more so because of how these things kind of already naturally deteriorate in their orbit, and parts of it come down and create rubbish in space, which is this is the way Amazon is never going to be able to compete with SpaceX on the launches, on the tech. That's not what they do. Amazon wants to be the logistics company for space. Very exciting opportunity. They're going to make trillions of dollars just doing that. So right now, there's only so much supercomputing capacity. China has a little bit more capacity than we do, so they've got a lot more hours burning up these things. And I think the first thing that happens is, China has announced that they have some type, whether it's true or not, I think it actually is true, some type of quantum radar system already put on some of their vessels. I think that's true. I think we saw testimony to the Senate about our vulnerabilities to quantum computing and how we're losing our lead there. I think that right now one of the first real breakthroughs you're going to see is in what's called quantum teleportation, which is communications devices, encryption and communications devices that are very secure and can't be penetrated, right, in the same way that other types of things can. So everything is changing. I mean, it's such an interesting question, and I could talk about it for so long, and I talk about everything for so long. So that one I could really set new records. So I would just say let's just start with quantum teleportation and keeping our satellites safe, because right now nobody's trying to shoot these things down, and nobody's trying to nobody's trying to take them off the store shelves. But and very soon these things are going to be shot down, and it's going to be space wars. It's exciting. It's really interesting times. It's exciting times, and these are very complex combination. There's so much complexity to the calculations where and so much precision is required. You're not going to be able to do it in an advanced way without quantum. And so people, these things are, with quantum, it's very exponential. So people are used to looking at, as they looked at with Tesla, and they look at a few other things, very algebraically, right? They look on kind of one problem resolved, another problem, and kind of platforming, and kind of you have an algebraic type of growth, kind of a geometric type of thing that can be easily quantified, and we can think about it in our heads and kind of imagine it because it reminds us of our 7th grade and 9th grade math, right? But these things are really exponential. So people are envisioning quantum computers as something that kind of is introduced, and then they have time to kind of intellectually accommodate it. And that's not the way it's going to work. It's people don't understand what's happening with Space Force, and I've tried to share with people. Nancy, wasn't I talking about it today with our new politician friend? He's got a 5-year-old daughter. I'm like, she's going to be in space. I'm telling you right now. She doesn't even believe that she's going to be in space, and he won't believe it. And it creates whole new industries of dry cleaning. How are you going to be able to clean garments in space, right? Right now, astronauts are they're in space for 6 months. They're wearing the same clothes.
How are you going to lift weights in space? You got to recalibrate everything when the gravity's off.
Everything. Just cleaning. Do you understand? Just cleaning. Just keeping a person clean, keeping a real sanitation system that can, function throughout long stays for a large population. I mean, consumer space travel is initially going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars to launch a couple of people and keep a couple of people in space, and they're just going to be kind of more kind of observers looking out the window and maybe spending some time in kind of a Starbucks in space. You're going to have millions of people in space by 2030 and 2040, 60. And you should look at some of the documents that are out there that are they're absolutely certain in what it's going to look like and what the population there is going to be and kind of how things are going to be in cislunar orbits and new sources of energy and transmissions of energy. But what's uncertain is there's several different scenarios that are given where we've won that war in space, China's won the war in space, or there's some type of an ongoing battle. And these are very important things just in terms of who's responsible for cleaning up the spaceways, right? Because you're going to have a lot of rubbish out there. And what happens if they obstruct our routes in space? Interesting things, man. This is a real issue. Was I responsible? I told you I had to keep it kind of at the cislunar looking down level.
You also have to think that there's going to be like a ton of health problems from people jumping into an ecosystem that they've had no evolutionary history for.
Well, right, and that's a really good point. And even going back to Plato, right? You're talking about right now our space is kind of like I hate to go back to it, but kind of like this city of utmost. I don't know what it would be called, but maybe like a city of just kind of like a place that only has like the most essential necessities, right? That's what space is right now, and it's not going to be that way soon. Sure. It's not going to be that way. You just have to take a look at some of what SpaceX is doing. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous what they're doing. Ridiculous.
Adam, should we call it a wrap? So we got more to talk about when we.
Can you see anything here?
Yeah, I want one more. This one, interior foliage, 1256.
Okay, so and I will tell you, he lives in a neighborhood.
Oh, really?
We haven't met. He has a greenhouse. We've got to go to it.
Oh, cool.
I know. Isn't that cool? We do. We're negligent because we're actually in Queens today. So, do you use Amazon or avoid for ethical reasons? I didn't buy the stock for ethical reasons. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe I let my sense of decency interfere with my sense of indecency. But do you use Amazon? There's no way not to, right? So if you're asking me if I use it in a conspicuous way with purchasing things, I do, right? I use it for, kind of transactionally, but there's no way to avoid using Google. There's no way to avoid using Amazon because we have to be aware of how deeply they've penetrated into our everyday existence in terms of mail, in terms of, all of our AWS type of services. It's just impossible to. So I am using Amazon, and not even reluctantly. I just don't have a choice but to live in an ecosystem that Amazon operates. I mean, Alex, you came out of Google. Is there any way you can't use Google?
Well, I'm not using Google right now. We could be doing this on a Google Hangout, I suppose.
But you are using Google right now.
I'm using Chrome.
You're just referring to one component of their services.
Oh yeah. I mean, I use Google. I use Gmail. I use a lot of the stuff. Yeah.
Well, you're using their backend. You're using a Google framework and backend also.
Yeah.
It's just that it's resident, but it's not something you have an awareness of.
It's like already embedded in me. I don't even think about it. It's like breathing. It's like part of my.
It is. Nancy, what do you think?
Lex Uzi at 101.
That's a good one.
So Lex Uzi, thank you very much for being here, and I recognize the name as well. So, how will vaccine certificates be used for control measures, travel, commerce? Yeah, all of those things. But what's it's not only that we've created so pharmaceutical, and I've been discussing this for a while because I'm very familiar with the industry from my own professional kind of creations, and their revenue is $1 trillion a year across the world, and 500 billion of that comes from the United States alone per year. So you're taking a look at extraordinary amount. In 2019, they had announced that their 2020 budget was going to be $10 billion in ad spend alone, and another $3 billion or so in doctor-patient groups, and like Facebook type of groups as well was an additional expenditure for them. So it's really not just the vaccines and certificates for control measures. It's how much people have had to have this encroach on their liberties. And this is a real disappointment that I've had with conservatives across the board and the left across the board, both of which used as some type of a way of distinguishing themselves that they were anti such things. And they were, in the end, the most eager to have those encroachments into our liberties. So I have contempt for both of them right now. I don't know where I'm going to wind up. Probably in anarchy, a libertarian anarchist. Maybe I'll be that. But how will vaccine certificates be used for control measures, travel, commerce? Oh yeah, all of those things. Oh, yeah, absolutely, all of those things. You're not going to be able to work, to have any type of job, even though it's going to be from your own home, without that being included within your professional resume that you've been given all those vaccines and such.
And what's the purpose, Adam, for that decision in particular?
Well, you're asking for kind of what do they call it, like in an ultima firma, right? You're looking for
they're doing it for big pharma, right?
Well, yeah, I mean the subsidy of big pharma and transferring taxpayer to the pharmaceutical balance sheet is certainly one part of it, but there's a convenience to that. But if you're taking a look at kind of like this whole kind of an organism and asking me to discuss why a limbic system is why biology over the years we've evolved into a certain limbic system. That's a fairly incomprehensible answer because I'm dealing with such imperfect information and I haven't had a chance to interrogate all the parties, so I'd have to just be speculating. But and I don't want to do that because I'm very content with just being kind of a meticulous chronicler of what's actually occurring. And from that, I can certainly see where things are going next. These things have not hid themselves. It was very clear in 2016 that Trump was going to win. It was also very clear in 2016 that they were going to manipulate the votes against Trump, and it's very clear that they have done that. And whether I need to prove that case, or rather the burden should be on kind of the judiciary, I think, right, to investigate all the evidence that's out there. But they never tried to conceal it, because if you call somebody a tyrant, then you have the moral permission to take down the tyrant.
Of course.
Right?
Yes.
So you just had to listen to the language that they were using, and they were very clear. And I'm very disappointed in the conservatives because we knew this was going to happen from the left and from the liberals, and Nancy and I are liberals, and we've always said that. But I'm very disappointed in the conservatives because they made a career out of clickbaiting and YouTubing and all these other types of things that they do, and saying, well, if Trump would have listened to me, he would have won, or if Trump didn't do this, he would have won, or Trump, and it's just nonsense. It's YouTube nonsense. He was in 2016, he was going to lose in 2020. And there was never any chance that they were going to allow an insurgent to build an administration, right? It's ridiculous. There was nothing he ever could have done to win. But so I've gone on a tangent from your initial question. So how will vaccine certificates be used for control measures? Well, you've answered your own question. But, we have to look at what's happening to the world right now. The world is kind of shaping itself into a third world system where you either have money or you don't. And those who have money are sovereign, right? Like we have the elites in DC sovereign right now. The only way for you to also become sovereign is with wealth. And if you don't have that, then all those control measures are going to apply to you, and it's going to be rigorous. It's going to be exhaustive, and it's not going to be pretty. So, but I really, again, I kind of resent that the clickbait YouTubers and all these personalities that have cropped up also did not have a very good system view of things, right? They because they're young themselves, they haven't really walked into every single office. Most of them have never really worked in a really regimented, hierarchical corporate environment, right? Where they've had to kind of see all the departments and encounter them all. They never learned the language of it, which is why they keep on getting kicked off of social media. They never learned the language of how to adequately communicate. But when the pandemic or so, first emerged, they were the first ones that wanted to volunteer to open the gates to the encouragement of our civil liberties. So I think you're just going to see a continuation. And I just watched it on Twitter. I'm just so disgusted. I'm thinking about closing out my account. That's how disgusted, because these people won't stop. They're just not who they think they are, and yet they have all these adherents. These fake venture capitalists like Balaji has adherents. It's ridiculous. The guy, I texted him during his whole thing, and I said, I'm going to bet against you. I'm going to bet your numbers are wrong, which they have been wrong. His numbers were way wrong. And he said, well, I'm not going to bet you, Adam, because you're betting on a certain number of people dying. And I said, no, I'm betting that a certain number of people won't die. I'm betting on life. And he's so full of shit. All these people are full of shit. They all talk because they're little Twitter celebrities. They've got nothing interesting to say, and they just mythologize themselves, and then they find some suckers because they're Q. Balaji is Q. He's the exact same thing as Q. As that Q phenomenon type of thing, QAnon. He's the exact same type of thing. He's for people they really can't fathom. They don't have the intellect. They don't have the reservoir or the interest. So they have this very fragmented. They have this very fragmented sense of reality where they just can't make sense of it. So they'll either go to QAnon, which has these kind of cryptic game player, role-playing game type of characteristics of it, right? Or they'll go to Balaji, who basically does the same thing. He just is a little bit more articulate. He steals language. He steals the vernacular. So rather than him having that same type of cryptic, figure it out for yourself, follow the money type of stuff, he has his own way of essentially having people participate in his role-player game. They're idiots. And he's poor. He's broke. He's the most brokest VC I know. But yet you would never know that from listening to the guy. But anyway.
How do you know that? You scope his balance sheet?
I wanted to wager him, and he had to be certain. He had to be honest about certain things. So I'll leave it at that. But I like the guy.
You guys got that much into details on the wagers that you're making asset lists.
I wasn't fucking around.
I mean, were you trying to wager a 7-figure sum with him?
I'm not going to discuss because I don't want to. I've already humiliated him enough. I don't want now. I don't. Oh, look at me.
I know.
I don't. I probably said anything beyond being congenial to him. I should probably should probably stop. But he finds his adherents, and that's fine. But all of these people are So we're never going to be able to get to any type of a restoration of any public type of good and service when you have all these little crackpots on YouTubes and Balages with their little fake ass stuff, because they are cute. They're identical. And I don't even think their appeal. I think QAnon in some ways has even a. I think the intelligence of the QAnon people is actually higher than some of the Balaji people. I think some of the Balaji people like the little slivers and fragments of reality, because what he does is he steals the vernacular of science. That's what he does. If you really listen to guys like him, he steals the vernacular of science. So he takes terms that are typically used by specialists, right? He strips them of their meaning, and then he introduces it as part of this science-sounding vernacular. And it's this kind, because most of the people who listen to him, there's this kind of monumentalization of science, right? They all think that these people.
All investment bankers do this. They just put Greek letters in front of everything and make it sound.
Whatsoever. That's not true whatsoever. Most venture. Did you? I don't know if you saw the Periscope I did with Ian. I don't know if Ian Sigler, the friend, some Graycroft Partners. He co-founded it with Alan Patrickhoff. I mean, you can just listen to that Periscope, right? And he's a friend, but just listen to the Periscope for an hour, and you see a really complex system view.
Okay.
It's extremely well articulated, very, and he's very good at transferring all that acquisition of information that he's parsed in his head, and then kind of delivering it, to the viewer, in this case on Periscope, the person who joined us on Periscope. And Balaji can only humiliate people, right? Because there's never any intellectual there's never any type of dialectical discourse with Balaji permitted, right? There's never any type of. I mean, I would batter the guy into a million pieces intellectually, but he's not. So
maybe we should get the three of us on a stream then.
He doesn't have the capacity because he has too much vanity, right? He would not be able to endure any type of dialectical discourse. So
I mean, I can see myself being the Don King here, Adam. We can set up fight night.
But the resolution to it against somebody like him, because he's never in the pursuit of truth. He's in a pursuit of some type of vainglorious to people who admire vainglorious, self-aggrandizing type of people. So there's never going to be any type of satisfactory settlement to any type of conversation with them. It's always going to be apparetic, because he's not in the pursuit of any type of truth. He's not looking. I think about it as mind sweat. He's not willing, and there's a lot of people on YouTube like that. He's just like he's like those people who were kicked off of Twitter. What's their those people who were like the old right, whatever they were called, and some of them
like the Milos.
Yeah, like the Milos. He's the Milos of his thing. I mean, he's incoherent nonsense, and I watch him, and he's an absolute idiot. But he's not permitting any type of an adversarial kind of interlocutor to engage with him. But this is the same tactic that Michael Mina from Harvard, from H. Chen over at Harvard, the H. Chen school over at Harvard, which was funded several $100 million by a high Chinese Communist Party official, which is very, very, that's all been disclosed, and that's all very transparent now, by Ronnie Chen. And it's the same type of thing that the COVID people, all the kind of evangelist almost, right? And of COVID doom, and these remember when exponential graphs were a big thing, right? And it's the same thing. If you listen to anything that's said on TV, there's never any type of discourse, intellectual interplay going on. Everything is this kind of a declamation, like
fear.
Like Jake Tapper. We just saw Jake Tapper on the street, right? I pet his dog, but he'll make some type of well, what if, and then like a Michael Mina or whoever it is, whoever the medical expert is, right, will have some type of like a 10-minute declamation that's never challenged. There's never any interlocutor. There's never anything going on, and it's I'm used to these type of stunts because this is what your generation particularly has created. It's created a lot of specialists who can baffle with bullshit. But really, in reality, you guys yourselves, and I'm not speaking of you, have survived a very cushy existence in the biggest bull market in history, where there's really been very little effort required for achievement.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of gifted to you guys, and there's never been any need for a lot of your generation to push envelopes.
Yep.
Both it was prohibited from pushing envelopes, but also it's not a particularly inquisitive type of generation that we're producing right now.
That's also because of how fast things are moving. Like, asking questions makes sense when you have abundance of time. When you don't have abundance of time and you're in a huge bull market, you just want to ship things.
Oh, I understand that. But yet you still have people like Elon Musk who are creating, I can name thousands of people who are creating it. Nancy works with with a lot of immigrant population, a lot of immigrant people and lower income people. They'll take any of these people's generation out. They just haven't been given the opportunity to.
Sure.
They haven't been given the adequate schooling. They'll take any of them out. And I think that Elon Musk was right when he said in China, they're much more appreciative of the opportunity. And it broke my heart. But I can tell you, I hear people that are mocking Space Force, that are Facebook developers. And I was laughing when they were getting fired, because I was telling them 2 years ago on Facebook's earnings calls, Facebook is saying that they're going to have an 80% of the population of their workforce. 80% of their workforce is going to be 1099 or contracted out. And they're going to have them bid against each other.
That's already how these labor markets work.
No, but they were saying it 2 years ago. They were saying on the earnings calls, they were saying full disclosure. Because there are some disclosure rules to this. They were saying, in guiding analyst expectations, they were saying, listen, 80% of our workforce is going to wind up being contractor, and we're going to have them bidding against each other, right? And so you're right. This is the way labor markets work, but it's never been so. Those plans have never been so. Can you turn that down a little bit? Have never been so transparent.
Well, yeah. I mean, when I worked at Google, I kind of, to make sense of my surroundings, had to reverse because you want to get paid more money and stuff like that. So I had to reverse engineer how HR worked. And they, like any other large corporation, they have a leveling system. You can only go up one level at a time. You can't diagonally transfer. They have all these rules in place that are basically meant to get the labor auction, bidding for their contract to be as competitive as possible. And that's what I kind of understood that Google understood extremely well, is markets. And you think about how AdWords is built. AdWords is one of the most brilliantly created products, I think, in the history of the world, because it maximizes the revenue per square inch of the Google search page.
That's interesting. Nancy, find me a question.
A friend, Bo.
Nice picture. That's so funny.
At 108.
Holy crap, that's Tom Cruise, Nance. Oh.
Wait, hold on.
He said that's for you. And another thing, he said this profile pic's for you, Adam.
Oh, that's awesome. And let me tell you, people ask me about Tom Cruise. And I've had this conversation. I had this conversation with Milton. I don't think you were here when I had it with her. But I said, the interesting thing with Tom Cruise and about Elon Musk is you can tell also a lot about a person's identity when you discuss Tom Cruise or Elon Musk, because a lot of people feel threatened by beauty and by achievements and accomplishments. A lot of people will say about an Elon Musk, I could have done that. They think of themselves as kind of intellectually capable of doing accomplishments. And and I've thought about this a lot, people are actually afraid of beauty because they're intimidated by it because they can't produce it themselves. And Tom Cruise, name, okay, right now, Alex, name a Tom Hanks movie. Name one.
Tom Hanks or Tom Cruise?
Name a Tom Hanks movie right now.
Forrest Gump.
Name another. Exactly. You failed. Name a Tom Cruise movie.
Mission Impossible.
Name another Tom Cruise movie.
Top Gun.
Name another Tom Cruise movie.
Jerry Maguire.
Okay, you couldn't do that with Tom Hanks. Okay, what made America great? I had a conversation with Nancy's executive assistant. She's from Pakistan. Her father is about 70 years old. Sadly, he's very sick right now. And I even videoed it because, I'm a funny guy. Right? And I said, who's America's greatest actor? And he thought about it for a while. And then with a little bit of pushing, he said Tom Cruise. When he grew up in Pakistan, they adored Clark Gable. Clark Gable sold America. His product was America. Tom Cruise's product is America.
Interesting. I hadn't. That makes sense though.
He's Hollywood is America, one of America's greatest creations, right? I mean, we are, right? And Tom Cruise is Clark Gable.
It's one of our greatest.
He's selling America to the world. Look, okay. So there's so much about Tom Cruise. He is absolutely one of our greatest actors ever. He's certainly our greatest living actor. His movies have all been fantastic. I can go down a list of all of his movies, and so could you. And you think about it, you're like, they've all been really good. And then I'm like, well, how come? And then you're like, but you know what? Denzel Washington is a better actor. Okay, name 5 Denzel Washington movies. You can't do it. You know why? Because you're not threatened by Denzel Washington. You find someone familiar to him.
You got to know the age of your audience too, because like when I hear you talk about Tom Cruise, I think you're joking, right? Because I'm not like, the guy's 15, 20 years older than me, right? I'm not.
The guy is filming the first movie in space. He's filming his entire movie in space. Do you know what that does to America? Do you have any idea what that does to America? All over the world, they're going to see America winning in space. Tom Hanks is a little whiny little, I'm not going to say it, but that's all he does in any of his movies. He's either the strong man or he's like the kind of contemporary Alan Alda with his little wimpy type of Forrest Gumpian type of thing that really just aren't great movies. They're mediocre movies. And he's a mediocre performer in them, but they just spend so much money on marketing and it's so much of a cookie cutter that there's nothing exceptional about him. And then you think of Tom Cruise. Wherever you go around the world, people know who Tom Cruise is. And they love him. Did you see that thing where someone's driving their car and then they say, holy crap, that's Tom Cruise riding on the top of a train. Did you ever see that in like Italy or something? And he waves back at them. Did you ever see that thing where Tom Cruise is on a red carpet and somebody squirts a water gun at him? Did you ever see that?
No.
And he says very calmly, he says, I want to know why you did that. He was granting the person an interview. He thought it was an interviewer. The person turned out to be a prankster, squirts a water gun at him. And he says, no. He says, don't go away. He holds the guy's hand, and he holds it fairly firmly, but he holds it compassionately, right? Because he's not going to terrorize the guy. He said, why did you do that? Now, think of yourself. You're a salesperson at heart. You're very intellectually inquisitive. You're very smart. Don't you want to know emotionally, if that was you, wouldn't you also say, well, why did that person do that? He honestly wanted to know why that person did that. Now, I'll give you his...
Did the person say what?
The person chickened out from it. Do you remember that video? Google the video. Then let me give you kind of the contrary. The Pope last year or earlier this year was doing one of his ceremonies, and I'm not particularly impressed by how he's managed the institution. Nevertheless, he's giving some type of a ceremony where he's walking around the Vatican, and he's doing the normal appearances, and a Chinese woman grabs him by the arm, a little bit forcefully, but that's okay. She grabs him by the arm, and she says something, and if I recall, her comment was about the plight of people in Europe, right? Plight of Chinese in China. As many communist survivors, will speak about their experience there because they realize how horrific it is. And he beat her off of himself. He forcefully attacked her. He chopped at her arm. Here's Tom Cruise, one of the greatest stars that everybody in the world knows, and he's asking a person, "Why did you do that?" Google the video. Now look at the contrary of that, which is the Pope, who has this woman who's also kind of making this menace of herself. And look at the video. He's literally chopping at her arm like this, chopping at her arm. So it's not just that his movies are great. He is a great actor because he can possess that type of emotional intelligence and transfer it across a transom. There's a transom from the big screen to kind of your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's able to kind of he's able to emotionally, he's got the intelligence to be able to cross the transom from the screen into that. The Pope couldn't do it because it's not genuine and authentic with them. Tom Cruise is genuinely interested. And then you listen to what the guy does with movies. He's doing his own stunts because he's got that much interest.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's amazing. And then you think of what sold America, what made America great. Humphrey Bogart, James Cagney, Clark Gable. That's what made her executive assistant's father come to America. No one's coming to America for freaking Denzel Washington. No one's coming to America for Tom Hanks. No one's coming to America for idiot Gil Gadot with her stupid ass kind of horrific movie, which we just saw, right? That movie we saw in the background, the Wonder Woman thing, because I wanted to see it for my own kind of wonderment. No one's coming to America for that. That's not what America is. So I think of that. People are coming to America for Elon Musk. They're coming to America for Tom Cruise.
Should we wrap on that?
I'm going to respond to a question really quickly. Then I'll let you wrap because you're a little sleepy, right? So what do you?
It's 140 where you are, man. What do you?
Not 140. It's 140 here.
Yeah.
But it's not 140 where you are, right? So that's what
I said. It's 140 where you are.
Time zone difference. I don't sleep, man. I don't sleep. Right? Okay. So Bo. Now I want to be responsive to it. What do you see happening to the U.S.'s burgeoning alliance with India if new administration cozies up with China? Really interesting question. I've discussed this a lot, actually, even with India's heads of intel. We've discussed this a lot because of my relationship to them. Immediately, I think it'll be fine because, we've got the contracts with Boeing. We've signed a lot of tech transfer agreements. We signed a lot of defense industry agreements, which really India was their largest. They were buying mostly Russian MiGs and Russian equipment, and Russia really had infiltrated their political system for the last 30 years, 40 years. And so America under Trump was really able to kind of sway that tide. He was able to restore our ASEAN allies that we had lost to the Russian reset. And there is a lot of fear that now with the weakness of the weakness of a Biden administration and its affection for China, they will lose that ASEAN alliance. However, I think that the trade with China, I think using China as our sole supplier for a lot of pharmaceuticals and a lot of other supply chains, and they were a source for us for a lot of these goods. I think those days are over. I don't think that can be restored even under the most favorable conditions under Biden, because companies like Apple, and I've been telling everybody this 4 years ago, we're going to end their contracts with Foxconn and end their contracts with the glass, the things that are really high tech in China, because there's too much risk and there's too much volatility for them. And companies like Google, Apple, all of them have to be able to forecast earnings going forward many years, and they have very long-term contracts with these companies in China. So it took them a while to unwind them, but now they've already kind of successfully done that. India is building a much denser supply chain at these days, much denser, much better. They've got a lot more product families than they even did a few years ago. We signed a lot more tech transfer agreements with them. We've come to an agreement with poultry and with silly things that even, so I think that certain things have already happened under Trump that are going to be very difficult for even, Biden's bias toward and sympathies towards the Chinese Communist Party. I think that it's going to be very difficult for Biden to do that. And he does, I know a lot of people advise him, and he does have some real China hawks there. So he's not stupid to that threat. His administration, that is, has a lot of good people in Space Force. I want to give him full credit for it. A lot of good people in Space Force, has a lot of good China hawks. I think that it's a little bit, I don't think he's going to be able to undo everything, that Trump did with India. I don't think that no matter how much coercion China might apply, it's not going to go back the way it was. Apple is not going to go back into China. Disney is not going to go back into China the way they had intended to. They were about to surrender many of the Marvel product licenses for their Marvel universe to China. and these were going to be China's superheroes, and you were going to hear about that about 2 years ago, and that all blew up. And China had even already built the film studios, that the film sets and all the big properties, because these things take a lot of square footage. I forget what they even called it. It was kind of like their Hollywood on the Sea or whatever they called this thing, and that's where they were going to film all these new Disney properties that were coming out of the X-Men franchise, like some of the new characters. I don't know. I don't read this stuff, but some of the new characters there. I don't think that that's recoverable. Even with, I think the world is just being bifurcated, and it kind of happened, and Apple had to forecast years in advance, so they needed to kind of plug themselves into what's happening within Vietnam, what's happening within Malaysia, what's happening within Singapore, what's happening within Taiwan. I think the first test we're going to see with the Biden administration is a huge escalation of the belligerence in the South China Sea, and huge escalation of the belligerence towards Taiwan. China has blacklisted Taiwan, particularly travel of its citizens to Taiwan, as protest to the presidency, to the Taiwanese presidency. And I think that I don't. The world's being bifurcated, and right now, for the first time, in recent history, over the last 60 or 70 years, for the first time, countries are really having to choose their allies, right? Allies used to be something of convenience. National allies used to be something that was more convenient, and it was done very ad hoc. It never had to be so regimented before. And now for the first time it is. And I think China lost no matter what. I just do. Now, will India, will India's DRDO, which is their kind of like, it's like their NSA and their Silicon Valley is all combined into that. Will they lose? Will India win in the competition for America's downstream nucleus for downstream innovation? Because right now innovation is so expensive and so complex that we can only do so much within the U.S. How much so it's going to be downstreamed? Is it going to be downstream down to India? Yeah, I think it will. I think they've got kind of the indigenous talent. They're building up a venture capital system. I think most venture capitalists should get over there really quickly, because it's going to be booming. That's it. We're done. We're done.
Go to bed, Adam.
Dude,
2:00.
40 minutes. Come on.
No, we should have stopped with a 26 or something, like a 26.2, something to represent a marathon. I would say it's
It was fun though, right? Did you have fun?
It was fun.
It was, right?
We should do it again, like planned in advance, maybe with Jim or whoever. But
I want to do it about fitness though, because
yes,
I didn't know that we were live and you were showing people your stomach. Nancy, you're not allowed. Nancy, you're not allowed to look at that. You're not allowed to look at that, Nancy. You're not allowed to look at that. But so, dude, your diesel, and as I announced during the beginning part of it, I got so ridiculously diesel that I kind of scared myself, because this was before the gyms reopened.
Yeah,
I was worried that I was going to lose the quality of my muscle. So I went on a mad splurge, and now for me, everyone thinks I'm still in great shape, but for me, I feel fat. I just don't feel like my workouts have that intensity.
So Adam, this is something that I don't understand. And, so coming from San Francisco, being at my nice gym, there's a lot of people who money is not in short supply. Right. And so, there's people who live in the city, and when their gym gets shut down, despite their 8-figure net worths, they don't know what to do. And I'm like, why would you not just buy your own home gym? Like, you're not.
Why do you want to buy your own home gym?
If the gyms are closed.
Yeah, but so I wound up working out in a park a lot.
Okay.
So Nancy and I liked working out in the park. I mean, we bought some weights here. I brought them in, over there. But because if there's ever a shutdown again, I'm just going to go there with my weights. But I was doing a lot of like lunges, a lot of push-ups, a lot of pull-ups. It was just a whole different workout that I enjoyed. But I didn't want to try. It would be like a replication crisis, right? I didn't want to try and kind of franchise the experience I have in the gym and then try and franchise in my own house. But I'm extremely competitive. And so I also I like being more muscular than everybody else at the gym. I really do.
Yeah, well, you got to lift weights if you want to do that.
Yeah. So, yeah, but for me, I'm older than you, so it's a little bit different, right? You're still trying to build. I'm just trying to kind of keep the fat off of what I've got. So, but I definitely want to do something about fitness. I did something for mental fitness with Nancy, spiritual fitness. Did you see that one I did that Nancy did with?
No, I got to catch up on all your latest.
Do you realize how much views these things get? Do you have any idea?
You told me. You were telling me 70,000, 100,000 for some of the larger ones.
Oh, that's. I must have told you that weeks ago. Because Nancy, tell them how much the one you did with Nina. How many views did that get, Nancy?
Yeah. Now we're up to the one I did is now at 109,000.
Yeah, the one I did with about China is at 136,000 views. The one I just did with Ian on Wednesday, this just passed, is at 122,000 views. So I want to do one. So Nancy did one with Nina. It was Investor Series 7.5, where we just talked about emotional and spiritual health. Nancy was amazing. And hopefully everybody got to see that. And if you didn't, I'll do something with it. But it was awesome.
Well, we're going to do a follow-up.
We're going to do, but this is listen to this. This is all I listen to. I only listen to devotional music. See? So I want to do something about physical fitness or emotional fitness or spiritual fitness because it's all the same thing, right? So I want to do one about that. But you're diesel, bro. You're sick.
I appreciate that, Adam. It's easier as well. As my body is getting older, my mind is still getting smarter. So it's easier for me to take shortcuts that I didn't know were available. And for new listeners, I'm not talking about steroids. I'm just talking about placing effort in the areas that I've found to actually matter and not place effort in the areas that everybody else says matter. Yeah. That's what happens when you become an expert at something. You can be lazier than the non-experts because you realize that they're wasting their time with a lot of things that don't matter.
How long for one of your workouts, are you working out 7 days a week? You're working out 5?
No. I do mobility work, a little bit of, because I have a bad left shoulder. So I do mobility work on that every day. I'll probably do, I like having longer training sessions just because I don't like going short rest periods in between sets. So I am in there for a couple hours a day, 4 days a week.
But so how much of that is very high intensity?
The whole thing, it's just there's long rest periods in between. So it's like I will do intervals for 10 minutes, right? So it's 60 seconds of intensity, 60 seconds off, or 60-30, but it's about 10 minutes worth, 5 minutes of intense work, 5 minutes of rest. Then I'll catch my breath, go do a warm up, which is low intensity because I'm warming up. And then I'll probably do, 15 sets of exercise. And it might take me an hour and a half to do, it might be, maybe 20 sets.
I work out. So I don't know if you ever saw pictures of me before, right? Did you ever see pictures of me before?
Yeah. Before you started working out?
Yeah.
Like bad posture, yeah.
Not just the bad posture. I was very heavy, right? I was fat.
I didn't know if I've seen very fat. I've seen fat.
I have a picture that maybe one day I'll share with the world, but maybe I should have, where I'm sitting down, right? And I'm not wearing a shirt. And you can't, my face isn't in it. So it's really just from here, it's from my, I guess around my clavicle down to around my belly button. And I was so fat that I had a breast that folded over. And I swear I look like a woman in it.
I really nursing.
Is this true? Did that look like I've got like I was voluptuous? I had like this voluptuous breast. I'm like, that's me.
Well, you did something about it. So that's no longer you.
You're the best, man. I can't believe we spoke for so long, man. It was like
this is great.
Dinner, though, right? Wasn't it fun?
This is awesome. This is why Twitter's so great. You get to meet other smart people from, well, you could too, just living in New York, but like, I appreciate the opportunity to get in touch with people who I've found to compile very interesting threads on topics that they know much more than me. And so I guess that's how you get smarter.
It was awesome. Thank you so much for this. It was going to be 5 minutes, and I was like, I'm just going to do it. And
just ran with it. Thanks, Adam. Nice to meet you, Nancy.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thanks,
We'll do it again soon. Maybe we'll get 50,000 views on the fitness talk. Shoot for that.
I really want to do the fitness one. It's important to me. Really,
let's do it.
All right, man. Thanks,
cool.
everyone. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Both.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.